Good evening. It's 5:30 PM on Wednesday, April 17th, 2024, and this regular meeting of the Sandpoint City Council is now called to order in the council chambers at City Hall, 1123 West Lake Street, Sandpoint, Idaho. For the record, I'm Mayor Jeremy Grimm presiding. Also present are Council President. No, we're lacking a Council President. Councilors Deb Rule, Joe Aspiro, attending remotely, Justin Dick, Kyle Schreiber, and Pam Duquette. Under the city's adopted code of ethics and civility, as the presiding officer, I'm to identify law enforcement personnel in the room who will be serving as Sergeant at Arms for this evening's meeting. Tonight, we have Police Chief Captain Bailey back there. Thanks, Captain Bailey. If everyone will please stand, we will recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As announced during council's last meeting, March 27th, Jason Welker has left his council seat in order to accept employment with the city as our new community planning and development director. He's off to a great start, and we are keeping him very busy. You'll hear from him later tonight. As a leader and serving as council president, Jason leaves big shoes to fill. To that end, I have brought forward the nomination of Rick Howarth to fill this vacancy. I will call for council president nomination shortly following this item. But at this time, I'd like to say a few words and invite Rick to the podium to introduce himself and answer any questions from the council members. I have known Rick since 2007, and thanks for being here tonight, Rick, and for your willingness to subject yourself to this. Council members and members of the public, if you didn't see it in the packet, Rick is an experienced international business person who's had the fortune to work with some of the largest, most complex projects probably in the world. He has managed budgets with many, many zeros beyond the city of Sandpoint's budget. And he is also a U of I double grad in engineering and BS and a master's in mechanical engineering. Rick grew up in Great Falls, Montana. He was married to Debbie Howarth, and Debbie's parents are in the audience tonight, as well as Rick's daughters, Anna and Alyssa, and Debbie's sibling, sister. And Debbie was a Sandpoint High grad, and throughout his career, Rick moved and always came back to Sandpoint. Debbie kind of used this as home base and was always eager to support our community. And then when Rick retired in 2018, he came back. He served on the board of directors for Kinderhaven. He is presently the chairman of the board of Lighthouse Foods. And I am sincerely honored to both know Rick and to be able to nominate him for the vacant position on our city council. I think he will be invaluable to assisting us as we struggle through all the challenges we face up here. With that, I guess I would ask Rick, introduce yourself to the council as you wish and say anything you'd like. And from there, we'll see if council has any questions and we'll go from there.
Mayor and council members, thank you very much. I am very humbled by this opportunity to serve the community. As Jeremy said, I've called Sandpoint home for more than 42 years. My wife grew up here, was a cheerleader at Sandpoint High School. We met at the University of Idaho, got married, and as my work took us through all parts of the world, we always called Sandpoint home. Along our journeys, I was able to spend 15 years in Asia, and during that time, my wife and I adopted our two daughters, and it was always our hope and desire to come back to Sandpoint to not only retire, but to be able to raise our daughters, and we have been able to do that. They are graduating high school, going to be leaving me. They're headed back to Indiana in the summer to start their college career. And, you know, when people ask me, well, why would you even want to come and subject yourself to this role? It's really because 42 years ago, I fell in love with this city. And my in-laws have lived here. They still live here. I want to see in my own small way if I can help guide the city so that hopefully in the future, my daughters will want to come back to this community, this community that I love as well. And so I honor the opportunity to serve. As you saw in my resume, I do serve in other board positions here in the community. I take each of those with utmost care and consideration as well. And after being in the high-tech industry for 42 years, I do think I have some skills that would be applicable to helping the city as you navigate the future of this wonderful community. And so again, thank you very much for the opportunity to serve.
Mhm. Thanks, Rick. With that, council members, any questions for Rick that you'd like to ask him before I eventually ask for your support of this nomination?
Mr. Mayor, I no questions, but Rick, I just want to thank you. Rick and I were on a very short notice, we were able to get a phone call in today. So I appreciate your willingness to come up and serve. And I think hopefully in a little bit, we'll be looking to looking forward to working with you. Thank you.
Mayor Grimm,
Pam,
I
go
have
ahead.
questions, of course.
Sure.
You answered one right away. Why would you want to do this? I was trying to think of all the questions I had to answer. I just got on myself. Concerning to me, I would like to know what your biggest environmental concern is for Sandpoint in the future.
Well, and just to be honest, I mean, we are blessed by an amazing environment around here. I would say for me, it's probably around the lake. As the city grows, how do you manage what runs off of the mountains into the lake? And as the city grows, those challenges get bigger and bigger. So that would be one that I would honestly dig into a lot. And better understand. I think we all rely on the lake for not only recreation, but water and many other activities. And so that would be an important area for me to consider.
The lake is a big draw for sure for most of us. Do you want me to ask another one or let somebody else?
Happy to have you go through all your questions if you'd like.
Okay, let's see. So let me see, I read your business background. What do you think will be the biggest challenge for us in the city for the next 2 years that you'll be on the council, at least?
Yeah, well, and I started to read a little bit of your master plan. It's very ambitious. As I read it, there's I guess a lot of hopes and wishes, but those also come with very large financial requirements. So I think there will be a need to really dig into each of those projects, really understand what we really need versus want, to be able to maybe make them a bit more affordable. I'm sure the city doesn't have an unending budget. And so I think that's one area I would consider with the ambitions of the master plan that you.
Okay, I guess the only other one with the lake being important, development around the lake, perhaps change to City Beach. How much importance do you think should be given to our environment when we look at development? I mean, people are moving in, houses, apartments are being packed in. What do you think about, where do you weigh the?
I would say it is certainly a consideration. It's hard to say on a hypothetical, but I think in any project of any scale, it is always going to be a consideration. Would I say that it is the highest priority? I can't say that. It would depend on the particular situation and the particular activity.
Okay, I guess I'm good.
Thanks, Councilwoman Duquette. Any other questions for Mr. Howarth? And Joel, that means you too, if you have any?
I'm good. Thank you very much.
I've had most of my questions answered. I'm fortunate enough to casually know your in-laws, and so I think I have an understanding of who you are and where you stand. And after reading through your resume and hearing you introduce yourself, I think that's all I need to hear.
Councilman Schreiber, anything to add or question?
Yeah. Again, like Counselor Dick said, it was great talking to you the other night and getting to know you a little bit. Do you think you'll be a good fit on the council? The one question that I didn't remember to ask, and certainly not any reason to believe this would be an issue, but just something to get out in the open is, do you have any investments or business dealings that might create the perception of a conflict of interest?
I own property in the community. But no, other than, if you consider that an investment, yes.
Okay, excellent. I don't think that's a problem.
You get to be a resident also. That's what I've claimed.
Yes.
I get to be
And I am a
resident.
resident of Sandpoint, so
I
I
did
should
not
have,
give that up
yeah.
when I got on council.
Well, thank you, council members. I would appreciate council support of my nomination, would entertain a motion to appoint Rick Howarth to our to serve until the next general election is provided by Idaho Code.
So moved.
Second,
Moved by Dick, second by Rule. This will be a roll call vote.
Counselor Rule,
yes.
Counselor Sparrow,
Yes.
Counselor Dick,
Yes.
Counselor Duquette,
Yes,
Counselor Schreiber.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, motion passes unanimously.
and thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Second.
We will now proceed with oath of office. Was I supposed to bring that? That was on my desk. A couple things there. All right, let's do it this way. Please raise your right hand. And you can put your left one. That is the first test. Do you, Richard A. Howard, solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Idaho and faithfully discharge the duties of City Councilor of the City of Sandpoint according to the best of your ability?
I do.
We'll sign first, and then you will.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. Oh, and we've got a official shining one in the back. Congratulations, Rick. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Really appreciate it. It's all new to you. This doesn't do anything. It'll scroll accordingly and you can follow along here. And I'll let you know if you're out of order. And other than that, thank you so much. Council, thank you so much for that. I am really excited for that. Next, we will elect a new council president. Would anyone care to make a nomination?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Dick.
I would like to nominate Councilperson Rule as the next council president. I think the tenure, the history, my 2 years working with her, I think she would be the best fit. Thank you.
I'd second that.
Motion a second by, or nomination and a second of the nomination by Dick and Schreiber. Councilwoman Rule, do you accept this nomination?
Yes, I will.
Are there any additional nominations for council president? Hearing none, this will be a roll call vote.
Counselor Sparrow,
Yes.
Counselor Duquette,
Yes,
Counselor Schreiber,
Yes.
Counselor Rule, you are welcome to vote for yourself if you would like. Okay. Counselor Howarth,
Yes.
Counselor Dick.
Yes.
Congratulations to our new council president, Deb Rule. Thank you, Deb. for your service. All right, next we have general announcements and reports. Are there any announcement from city council at this time?
I have one, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to share in case if there wasn't a flyer on it, that tomorrow evening, Project 7B is sharing what they call Small Town Big Vision. And it's a film fest for anyone who's ever cared about where they live. And that's quoted by them. It's at the Hartwood Center at 5 o'clock. I think it's well worth attending. Can I say that?
Yes, absolutely.
I always have to ask.
I would concur. I unfortunately have a hearing for my private business tomorrow night, but I would encourage everyone in the community to tune in and show up. It is a valuable information session and some great films on the value of land use planning. Any other council announcements? I'll just give a brief announcement from the mayor's desk. Today I did have the opportunity to speak to Rotary, and I gave them what I called the first 100-day update on the city. No rotten tomatoes were thrown, and in general, just went over my priorities that you probably have all heard, which is wastewater, roads and streets, and water, the comp plan, and economic diversification. Lots of good questions, great feedback. Beyond that, we are making a lot of headway. You will see, if you stop by City Hall, a number of new faces, some who will be introduced tonight. Councilman or Community Planning and Development Director Welker, it's going to take me a little bit to get used to, has been on the job now for over a week, and we are keeping him busy. He's getting up to speed and making an impactful role in that position. So thank you, Jason, for that, and the rest of the staff as well. We've also had an additional interview for the Public Works Director today. Very qualified candidate, familiar to some faces in Sandpoint, and certainly well acquainted with Sandpoint and Public Works related activity, a former Public Works Director at a town nearby. So we're going to continue that interview process, but I'm very optimistic that we will be able to fill that position shortly, which will be really, really wonderful. At this time, I would just like to take a few minutes to hear any quick reports from staff. They've all been onboarding. I think there are five new staff members since our last council member on board. So that's really exciting. Staff members, no one be shy. Is there anyone back there who wants to give us a update or briefing on anything? If so, come on up. So come on up, Maeve.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In case you haven't noticed, the Traverse Park is well underway, and the building is between 50 and 60% completed. We are now moving towards the interior, so hopefully the noise is reduced. And we are doing the insulation and all the utility work right now. And then I just 15 minutes ago got the playground design, so I'll be back at the next council meeting with that to go to bid. But we're able to get everything in that we wanted. And I think all those kids who wanted various elements will be really happy. So anyway, great news there. And then up in the watershed, we have the downhill trail realignment project is continuing with the Ponderay Peddlers, and they broke ground this past week. We had our pre-construction meeting. There's 2 crews up there, and the Ponderay Peddlers are managing that project. And then I'm overseeing at the very high level. So we're plugging away on that. It's going really, really well. Part of that project is going to be a decommissioning and erosion control project that we'll do that later in the summer. But yeah, things are moving out there. So that's it.
Excellent, Maeve. Thanks for all your hard work. Are there any questions for Maeve from council? Councilwoman Duquette, I can read your mind.
Yes. Oh, so now you caught me off guard.
Oh.
So you did say that when you talk about the playground, that's the new playground. I do believe that at one point you said you would get some things up for the kids that are used to going there. First off, just to give them some, is that underway?
Yeah, so when we changed the scope when the community and particularly council directed us to move the playground further back away from the parking lot. And so that forced where we were going to put the reclaimed equipment to move to the back of the site. And the contractors came back and said that they didn't want us to be opening anything in the the north end because we have too many tight constraints in there. It's way too dangerous to allow kids to get back there. There's no safe route. So no, we're not going to be doing anything like that. It is sad, I know, but right across the street is a playground at the local school, right? I forget the name of it, but it's one of the Christian schools across the street. It's literally across Pine Street. And then the bike skills course is going to open very soon. Jason's going to tell you about that. So we do have offerings for children in the area. And plus with the playground construction getting out to bid and getting all that, we should be under construction pretty quickly. So hopefully we'll be able to get it open before the school year starts. It is an inconvenience, but it's hopefully just once out of 20 years that we'll be doing this for this area. And the equipment that we're specifying, it literally has warranties between 10 and 20 years. And there's one feature that has a 50-year lifespan. So I don't think in our lifetime, we're going to even have to worry about that playground getting replaced again. So it's a small price to pay, a little bit of pain, and hopefully folks will still enjoy the park because the trails are going to remain open. All the fields are going to remain open. The skate park will remain open. That construction is scheduled to start at the end of May. Around Memorial Day, they're going to mobilize to the site, and then May 28th, they're scheduled to begin. But they're going to keep the bowl open. So there's going to be a lot of activities that the kids can do. And again, there's playgrounds in the area.
So is the playground across the street open to the public? The school's
We
playground?
actually don't know for sure. But
Something to check out. I
yeah,
guess.
we have to work on.
Yeah, I forgot. What was that? It is. Is it, are you familiar? Is it open for the public to use? I'm not
Yeah,
supposed
we'll
to ask for
verify
anything.
that though, Pam, and let
I'm
you.
sorry, what was that?
I'll verify that and let you know.
Okay, yeah, that'd be nice. And I get the safety thing. I'm gonna throw out one more thing, and I know you and I have talked about it, recycling at the parks. I'm throwing it out there. Just put it in everybody's head.
Excellent.
It just,
Um,
you're in there planning what it's gonna be, and a recycling bin would be wonderful. Even if it's just aluminum and plastic cups.
So Jason Welker is the new leader of parks and
Okay.
that also includes park maintenance.
Okay.
So I would recommend bringing that up with Jason. I don't manage the maintenance. However, and whenever possible, we always put opportunities for recycling, and we recycle at City Hall. So always bring your recycling here.
Okay, and I am just gonna throw out, I have somebody who will collect cans when we get something downtown.
Okay,
Pisney is wanting to do that
great.
because they will take the cans to Pacific Steel and get money.
When we get our commissions going, our sustainability commissions, Councilman Duquette, I look forward to getting educated on everything we need to do better.
Okay.
Thanks so much, Maeve. Any other questions for Maeve?
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Any other, Mr. Welker? What's it like from that side?
Oh, it's weird. Strange view.
You have 3
Um,
minutes.
I know. I get as long as I need.
Hmm.
Rick, nice to see you. Thanks for filling my seat. Really excited to get to know you a little bit. Council, good to see you from this side of the dais. As you know, and members of the public, I'm Jason Welker, former city council president. I did begin 9 days ago as the community planning and development director. And just to give you guys a little idea of what that department entails, I have several amazing team members who have helped me with onboarding over the last 2 weeks. And I want to extend a big thanks to those individuals, starting with Austin, our parks maintenance coordinator. Austin has an office at City Beach, but he has come into City Hall several times to meet with me and catch me up on the myriad parks facilities that we're responsible for maintaining, that he oversees. He has a year-round crew of 6 that are also in this department. Heather Upton, our Arts, Culture, and ACHB, Arts, Culture, Historic Preservation Officer. Heather works throughout the whole department on so many great projects, some of which I'm going to talk about in just a moment. Of course, Maeve is our Parks Planning and Development manager, and she is doing an amazing job managing this over $8.5 million Russell and Playground project at Traverse Park. We're going to have more updates in the near future on that. Christine Kuhlman is our building official. Christine is by far she's got this depth of knowledge about everything planning and building related in Sandpoint, and she has been invaluable and helping catch me up. Then I've got a couple new team members to introduce to you tonight. I'm going to do that in just a moment, but I'm going to share a few staff updates with you about what's going on in the Community Planning and Development Department, which includes actually 4 different teams. We have the Parks team, the Recreation team, the Planning team, and the Building team. So I'm going to touch on just some of the things going on. First of all, I'll start with Recreation. We've got several spring and summer rec programs that are getting off the ground in the next few weeks. Starting Friday morning, we have registration opening for our adults doubles tennis league. We also have registration opening for men's and women's softball leagues on Friday. We have the outdoor shooting range, which is also one of our parks facilities, is now open for the season. And adaptive fitness classes, which are for teens and adults, registration is open now. We have Sandpoint Contra Dance, registration is open. Actually, that's a free program with a suggested donation of $5. All the information about these is on our website. And the city-run track program for elementary students has been going on for several weeks now. And there is a track meet next Thursday. My daughter's doing that. Absolute blast. They play and train at the high school track. And then on May 3rd, the city is supporting the school district with their annual bike rodeo. This is happening actually at the Park Church parking lot because of the construction going on in the Travers Park parking lot. And with that bike rodeo this year, the city will be opening before the bike rodeo, the Skills Park, which POP undertook construction and fundraising for last fall. That park is actually done. We're just waiting for signage to be installed so we can get that Bicycle Skills Park open. So that's a pretty exciting development. Also in the parks realm, all the fields at Travers Sports Complex are now open just as of this week. They were still too wet to play on last week. So the local sports communities are very excited to have all their fields now open in the city. We have the Martha Snack Shack. Many people want to know if we're going to have a snack shack at City Beach. Nothing is final yet, but we are in talks with some local food vendors about taking over food operations at Martha's Snack Shack so we can continue to have food services at City Beach. We are working with some potential vendors to do that. Also in the parks world, you've seen the Russell building is now up. It's moving towards completion, as Maeve said. On Monday next week, Maeve, myself, and a member of the parks maintenance team are flying to Minneapolis to visit some tennis centers that the Legacy Building Structures has erected in the Minneapolis area. So this is not the first indoor tennis center that this company has built. So we're going to go get kind of a maintenance and operations insight into some similar tennis centers in the Midwest over Monday and Tuesday next week, which will be really exciting to see some finished versions of what we're going to have here later this year. Okay, couple updates from the planning and development world. We have a comp plan workshop next Wednesday, I believe, 24th. I hope to see all of you there along with our Planning and Zoning Commission. The next 3 chapters that we hope to get through at next Wednesday's comp plan workshop include housing and neighborhoods, multimodal transportation, parks and recreation, and hopefully we can keep moving through those chapters as well. You might be getting emails from me in the next week asking you to prepare suggestions or edits to those so we can try to move fairly quickly through the comp plan workshop, which I will be overseeing next week. Okay, also in the development world, we have asked Christine for a development update. It's not quite time for the quarterly development pipeline, but there is one very exciting project that Christine wanted me to share with you, and that is the Tribute, which is the mixed-use residential development going in north of Super One. They are very close to moving into the construction of the first building on that property, 73 multifamily housing units with commercial downstairs. And the entire planning and development team is very excited about that project because it's looking like something that's going to fit really well with the character of Sandpoint. So if you have more questions about that, you can reach out to me or Christine. Okay, it's time for a couple. Oh no, I have one more announcement about arts, culture, historic preservation. We do have our Heather Upton, our ACHP expert at the city, will be on the air 8 a.m. on Monday morning for another episode of the Community Character Hour on KRFY Radio. I encourage you to tune in. You can also listen to the podcast later in the day. She will be with Hannah Coombs of the Bonner County Historical Society. And finally, from the ACHP world, we have the committees and commissions, which have been a big priority for council, for the mayor. We will be coming to you May 1st with some suggested updates around our ordinances governing the bylaws and so on for our committees and commissions. And just today, or maybe tomorrow, we're putting out a press release and some social media posts to try to top off our numbers in those committees and commissions. So members of the public, we need a minimum of 5 in each of our 5 new commissions/committees. The only one that has achieved that number right now is the pedestrian bike committee. Committee, yes. No, that one's a committee. There's a difference between committees and commissions, but we do need more numbers in urban forestry, in sustainability, in ADA, and in Parks and Recreation. So please encourage community members to apply. There will be a link on our Facebook page by tomorrow.
And we tripled the compensation to those people, right?
Yes, it's gone from 0 to 0 times 3.
Excellent.
Correct, Mr. Mayor. Okay, it's time for a couple of introductions. We have a new, as of 3 days ago, recreation superintendent at the city of Sandpoint. This is the replacement for Jason Wiley, who served the city for 19 years before leaving us a few months ago. I'd like to bring Katie Bradbury up really quickly. Katie joins us from Frisco, Colorado, where she did a very similar job. Katie has a master's degree in recreation and sports.
Tourism management.
Recreation and tourism management. She is certified in.
Nationally certified with the NRPA,
Yes.
What is the NRPA?
National Recreation and Parks Association.
Excellent.
Katie is already crushing it in her role as our recreation superintendent. She's got so many ideas. She said yes to things that we didn't know if we'd be able to support this year. Things like the Chafe community ride. We've already been in touch with the Rotary Club to offer. We didn't know if we'd be able to do it. We're going to be supporting the Chafe family ride from City Beach out on the Sand Creek Trail this year. Katie was like, no problem, we can do that. So we're really excited to have Katie on our team. She's had experience in the Parks and Rec departments in several large cities around the West. She's worked in Pittsburgh, and she's from Spokane, Washington. So she's kind of moved back to her inland Northwest roots to join Sandpoint. So we're really excited to welcome Katie. Thank you, Katie.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Katie, thank you Katie's been here for
This is her 3rd day.
3rd day,
Yeah.
and both thanks to Cammie for leaning in and holding things together in Jason's absence. We've been cutting and restricting programs because there's simply no bandwidth to have people organize and do this work. So thank you so much. So glad to have you here and look forward to a long term for you here at the City of Sandpoint.
And I have one more introduction before I leave you today, and that is our new Community Planning and Development Administrative Assistant, Kelly Christensen. Kelly, do you mind coming up really quick? Kelly, coming into the city, you think, oh, everybody here knows everything and they've been here a long time. Kelly, this is her 3rd week on the job. So Kelly's also brand new to the department, but she has so much experience working in city government. She came from Boise, where she was for 31 years, but she was born and raised in Sandpoint. So she's also returned home.
I'm
So
home.
yeah. So if you see Kelly around City Hall, she's one of the frontline people right outside of my office in the lobby area. And Kelly has just been so helpful getting me organized in the last week and a half. So thank you, Kelly.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Come say hi.
Yeah.
Awesome to have you here, Kelly. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions for me before I?
Questions for Planning and Community Development Director Welker?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilwoman Duquette?
the tribute, are there any of those affordable housing, or are they?
I don't believe they are
Okay.
like designated Section 8 affordable housing. They're going to be market priced housing. But from the perspective of multifamily, density versus single family low density, they're definitely going to be on the more affordable end of the spectrum. From what I understand, of course.
Were there
no
ideas for
guarantee.
what the commercial would be, or just like?
That's a good question. I haven't heard anything yet. I don't know if they're going to be small individual businesses or something big like I'm not sure at this point.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions?
No, Jason, thank you so much. I can't tell you how much I appreciate all your hard work, and you're learning super fast, and thank you for you and your team.
All right, guys.
Any other staff updates back there? Oh, it's going to be a tie race. Eric Bush.
I want to see him run.
Good evening, councilors. I'll be brief. Just wanted to provide a quick update on the item that I discussed at our March 20th council meeting, which was the Great Northern Grant application.
And Eric, will you just introduce yourself with your title for Councilman Howarth too, so he knows who you are?
Apologies, Councilman. My name is Eric Bush. I'm a construction manager. I work, and I'm also the city's urban forester, so I'm working on a bunch of different things. I'd be happy to bring you up to speed on what I'm working on if you'd like.
Thank you.
I lost my train of thought. Where was I?
Great Northern.
Great Northern. Last March 20th meeting, we discussed Great Northern and we received approval to apply for the 2 grant applications. One of those grants is currently out, so we're going to have a meeting with our consultant here shortly and we'll be drafting that application. So we expect we'll be submitting for that, I would imagine, in the next month to 6 weeks. So that's pretty exciting. But the main item I wanted to mention was last week, we had our pre-diagnostic meeting with BNSF. And that is a technical term for engineering review meeting. Basically, BNSF had folks from all over the country, their regional offices, projects folks, engineers, transportation folks and the like. And we went through our entire Great Northern project and got their feedback. That allows us to tweak our design now where there's minimal cost impacts, if any at all, as opposed to doing it right prior to construction where we have to do rework and the like. So overall, it was a very productive meeting. We had some comments from BNSF, but they were relatively minor in nature, nothing earth shattering or anything like that. So we're kind of full steam ahead. I just wanted to update everyone. That was a positive meeting and we'll be submitting grants shortly.
Excellent. Thank you, Eric. That's, we'll await any updates in the future. Any questions for Eric? Thank you so much. Cassidy is coming up, and Cassidy, I'm so bad with titles. Can you give us your title?
Yeah, that's okay. Hello, Mayor and City Council
Other than
members.
my other right hand, which I have
Yep.
several.
My name is Cassie Rokill. I'm the Special Events Permit Coordinator here at the city, as well as the Executive Assistant and Deputy City Clerk. So I coordinate the permitting process in between the host and the city for all of our special events that take place in Sandpoint. Welcome, Rick. I look forward to getting to know you. Councilors, good to see you again. We are starting our busy event season here in Sandpoint. As a reminder to hosts and all prospective hosts, in order to avoid a late fee and alleviate some of the processing delays, please make sure your application gets submitted a minimum of 21 days prior to your event, which is per our special event policy and procedure, which is adopted by council. If anyone is interested in applying for a special event permit, it's located on our website, sandpointidaho.gov. It's on the left-hand side under permits and licenses on our website. Sandpoint processes a large volume of special events for the size of our city. I've been told we actually get as many as Boise. Obviously, the volume of attendees at those are a little bit less. But last year we received 64 special event permit applications, and we have a lot in the pipeline right now for this year. I just checked and I have 32 received thus far for 2024. So busy season. We love supporting the vitality in our community with our special events. And if you're ever curious about any special events going on in town, be sure to check out our calendar on our website. I post those special events as they're permitted on our site. Just applications that are received are not posted on our website. They need to be actually permitted before we post them up on our calendar. But I do update that, so be sure to stay tuned to that. If you go to the Get Involved tab on our website, and then under the e-notifications portion, you can always subscribe to everything that we have going on at the city, but special events is one of those options to subscribe. Upcoming permitted events that we have in the pipeline that are currently permitted. We have the Earth Day Shoreline Cleanup, which is occurring this Saturday on April 20th. We have the 3/4 Minus Cycle Tour occurring on May 4th. Cinco de Mayo fundraiser on the 5th of May. 988 Your Life Matters Relay Race is on June 1st. And then the Chafe 150 bike ride is on June 15th. And there's many more in the process, ready to be permitted, close to it, or in the process. As well as those that you'll find on the agenda this evening, the 2 license agreements and a request from the Lions Club, of which hosts are in the audience to provide representation. So if you or any members of the public ever have questions on special event permit questions, please send them my way.
Thank you, Cassidy. And for council members or the public, Cassidy, issuing a special event permit it's not like just signing a piece of paper. There's coordination between departments. We look at land use, we look at police and fire response, we look at traffic circulation, insurance, contracts. There's a lot. The festival, for example, you know, you look at all sorts of documents, there's meetings, there's a lot to it. So thanks for keeping us rolling, Cassidy. You couldn't do it without you. So thank you. And
Absolutely.
any questions for Cassidy?
Thank you.
Anyone else back there? Adam, I think, IT director or IT manager?
Hello, my name is Adam. I work with the city IT department, primarily focusing on cybersecurity. I just had a few updates from this last month. We've been primarily working on hardening our security in Microsoft 365. We've gotten our security score up over 70%. Since we were at the beginning of last year, we were below 20%. And according to the national average, it's about 45% for organizations of similar size. So we're making massive progress, and we're going to keep on pushing forward to get it even more secure. Some of the things we've done is just decreasing multi-factor authentication times from 30 days. Well, even just enabling MFA in general for the city was a huge thing. But we've lowered that down to 14 days. And then also we're increasing, or we've enabled some of the standard security policies, which some of you guys have probably already seen quarantine messages come in for messages. That's part of the standard security policy that quarantines a message based upon what it finds inside the message. Also, if the sign-in risk is too high, it will actually re-authenticate or force you to re-authenticate, preventing somebody from being able to lift your token and just sign in from some other country that should be blocked through RGOIP blocking. But if they were to find a way to get into America through a VPN, they could sign in using a lifted token. With the new policies in place, that should be prevented. Some of the upcoming stuff is we're going to be enforcing some custom branded logins so we can identify our login pages versus something that's trying to be a scam. So we'd actually just be a visual reminder of what you're actually logging into. So that should be upcoming, and so you might want to be aware of that. We also have some cybersecurity awareness training that's happening for the city. We have had several for the fire department already, as well as the police department. We have one coming up tomorrow that is for staff. Council, if you want to join any of that, you're more than welcome. That's happening at 2:30. And then also right after that, we're going to have some NoV4 training that's going to be pushed out, which will be required training for just general cybersecurity knowledge. In the background, we're also working on some stuff with CIS, which is malicious domain blocking and reporting. That helps us to be able to identify, detect malicious programs running on our systems. And then also give us reporting and also help us to prevent that from happening. And then just an update on our SCADA project that is in progress now. We have final paperwork done and we are moving forward. We have some server stuff happening this week, actually happening tomorrow. So we're going to start speccing that. And other than that, the project is being kicked off completely the following week. So yeah, that's all I got for today.
Adam, thank you so much. Any questions for Adam?
I'm misunderstanding. I thought we were required to go tomorrow at 2:30. Is that not?
Just you. Just you.
Which is probably good.
Yes, I did send that out to
No.
everybody in the city. So
I would encourage if you can attend to attend. It's absolutely amazing. You can't even believe the scams and the fake faux emails and things that come through. It is
I've gotten
relentless. It is relentless.
I'm lucky, I guess. Okay, so it is something that we do go to at 2:30.
yes.
You will learn a lot.
And if you can't make it tomorrow, I'm going to be setting up another one. I haven't determined the date yet, just because not everybody's able to attend to one tomorrow. So,
I did put it on my calendar.
all right. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate all that you do. I know all of it's in the background and quiet, but we're live, so that's thanks to you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Adam. Anyone else back there want to give an update? We're good. All right. Let's see. Next, we'll have a brief report from the Aquatic Weed Solution on their 2023 invasive aquatic weed control activities. If they would please come to the podium.
Hi, my name's Matt Lawrence. For those of you that don't know me, a lot of new faces up here from last time I gave a presentation. Just a brief background introduction, so you guys kind of know who you're talking to a little bit more. Born and raised local, lifelong. I started fighting aquatic invasive species in Lake Ponderay in '06. While I was still in high school, SHS. So quite a background here. This year was a very promising year for me, for the big part that we are the contractor for the state of Idaho as well. And the state of Idaho basically were able to allow us to get a lot of the area within city grounds that the budget had never really covered before. So that was really encouraging because basically the channel kind of by the railroad bridge working in where all the boat traffic is has always been really bad, but it's never made it high enough up the priority list for us to spend a lot of time there. So the state was able to come in, help out a lot, pulling that. The numbers in this do not include any of the state funding that was utilized. It was a significant amount. I don't have it because it's all electronic, but it was pretty similar to the amount of money that the city had allocated as well. So substantial. So I'm looking forward in the future. I believe we're going to continue to utilize that relationship. Obviously, you know, that's up to the state as we move forward, but it is progress and something that is exciting for my radar, you know, with the passion we have for the beach, everything else. So this year we did remove approximately 21,000 pounds of wet biomass. The way that we prioritize it, flowering rush has always been our number one threat for about, well, as long as this program's been going. Flowering rush can grow in 30, 35 feet of water, get really dense, kind of take over boating, swimming, recreation, all that. So that's always been our number one priority. Eurasian water milfoil is one that people know the most about because when it first came in, there's a lot of funding and education and outreach about it. That realistically has kind of topped itself out. And it is a problem and it does spread. But realistically, flowering rush is a lot bigger threat to us and especially the city property. And then curly leaf kind of comes in third place. Curly leaf is a plant that grows fast early. So by June, early July, it's kind of topped out and it's the first one that bugs people. But then it naturally recesses by August or so. So that one we try and get after early. Get some of there are some test plots as you guys can see in here, and I'm happy to go over it, you know, in detail, if you guys have questions, but just trying to give you a gist of it is there's never been enough funding to try and actually eradicate it. So what we've always had is a management plan. The management plan focuses on eradicating all the flowering rush plants. And that actually starts in the drawdown period. I'm sure you guys are familiar with the old Waterkeeper and Waterkeeper program. They actually started it and we kind of joined in. It was a dry ground. As the water was exposed, you go in and you pull the plants by the root bulbs. You can kind of see them poking up. We've always done that as part of this program as well, because there's times when the docks shift or piers or post or too high boating traffic, we can't get in there. We always try and do the best job we can of, you know, obviously avoiding the 4th of July, avoiding holidays, being a local contractor. We can kind of pick and choose good days and bad days and, you know, stuff that when we're out of town, we don't have the luxury of doing. So that is one, you know, very nice thing. The Eurasian milfoil has always been a very small test plot just to see if we remove the roots. So about 10 years ago, the city laid down a jute fabric with another contractor, and that was basically a coffee bag. They laid over the plants and it was supposed to naturally degrade over time and stop plants from growing there. That ended up causing a swimming and boating hazard because as it degraded, it came up and would become entangled. And myself, actually, the first year we had the contract, I actually became entangled in it and had to be cut out of it. And that area that they had laid that down was traditionally a Eurasian milfoil patch. And we used that exact area. We actually still have a few pins down there, kind of on the last last pier out there right before the breakwater, there's a 10 by 20 section roughly, that we have removed all the roots out of and everything. And year to year, it's very effective. And I would recommend it if we weren't getting Eurasian milfoil fragments from upstream in mass, volume. And that's been our biggest problem, ever since starting in 06 is, flowering rush is getting more and more prevalent upstream. So is Eurasian milfoil, so is curlyleaf. So Knoxon and, Sanders County and all them, they don't always have funding. So when they don't have funding, we have worse years and more plants come downstream to us. So unfortunately, the problem doesn't start with us, so we can't, solve it. And that's why the management tactic has always kind of been the best tactic, or most effective. And as far as boating, we always try and keep the plants below the surface level, 3 feet below at least. That includes some native vegetation if we have funding for that. Obviously, this funding is for invasive species. We've always utilized it that way, but later in the season, sailboats especially, there'll be 1 or 2 individual Eurasian plants that pop up. In order to prevent all that from spreading, we go in and just kind of suck the tops off the plants. And what that does, it allows the native plants to still have hold to where the invasives won't take over their root system, but also prevents, boaters and recreationalists from dealing with aquatic plants. So over the 8 years that we've had the contract, we removed just under 150,000 pounds of aquatic vegetation. And in the future, I'm really hoping to just get more efficient at it. It is one of those things where I would love to say we're going to get less and less plants coming from upstream. I really don't foresee that happening anytime in the near future. They do use herbicides upstream, but there are no known herbicides that are effective on flowering rush at this time. So for end water application. So in the meantime, we're just, kind of on a management plan and in order to effectively remove the curlyleaf and the Eurasian milfoil, we would need approximately an additional 200 hours of diving a year to try and eradicate it. But as I mentioned, not really a great financial feasible goal in all honesty. So, any question?
I have one just interesting question. Is this custom equipment you've made to do this, or do you buy it off the shelf, or?
It is custom. It's kind of, for lack of better terms, a modified gold dredge, that we have, went in and, kind of, made effective just for screening plants. So our current system out there, you'll see either cages with different, levels of mesh where the plants get caught in and then put up on tables and then put in totes and then, disposed of that way. Or we actually have table boats where it screens every fragment, and they're both effective in their own ways. So we just kind of, depending on what plant at what stage, because each one of these plants at different times of year are more or less likely to fragment, right? Eurasian milfoil in August, you touch it and it just naturally wants to blow apart in 4-inch fragments, and every fragment is basically a new viable plant. So if you get it in July, you can beat it with a stick and it don't come apart. So kind of, those little things that make a big difference, and educating people and just trying to stay on top of it.
Oh, thanks for the service, and thanks for the background. Any questions from council?
That was kind of my question, what they use. When you say hand, you don't hand pull. You do, you dive down in.
Yeah, we have a diver. So there's always one diver in the water on the ground, actually physically pulling the plants, putting it into a suction device. And then there's one guy on the boat collecting those and then watching, and then obviously boat traffic and all that. And that's one thing, you technically can't legally dredge in Idaho without a permit anyway. And then it's not very effective just to stick the dredge in the water and, suck up dirt. That doesn't do much for anybody. So, you're selectively pulling the roots.
You said you lower the tops of the plants too. Is that with the dredge?
That's actually still by hand. So the dredge doesn't do anything if the hand doesn't touch. So, yeah, so, and there are cutters, we can pull some cutters, but
Uh.
unfortunately, you're still trying, the tops are very effective. It's really not, as fast as we can swim, we can pull them. So
Huh.
it's the root systems that you really want to spend the time on and be effective and actually remove them. Because if you don't do it right, you might as well not do it at all. So, but
Now, assuming you have a mask, your diver has a mask, you would be able to say if there are larger fish at the railroad trestle or
absolutely. So the biggest fish I've ever seen in Lake Ponderosa, and I'm an avid fisherman, absolutely avid, underneath the sailboat dock.
Oh, good to know. Thank you.
Every year there's a 7-pound largemouth underneath.
Wow.
Thank you for doing that.
If there's no other questions, we have this contract on later on the agenda. Appreciate your time tonight and what you do. Be safe out there.
All right, thank you.
And this presentation with the pictures of, do we have that somewhere? Can we?
Yep.
Because I went through so fast just to see where all that is. That's crazy.
I could send that out.
Okay, that'd be great.
City clerk, and then she can
Thanks.
disperse it.
Next on the agenda is the public forum portion of the meeting, which allows the public to address the council and myself regarding items listed on the consent calendar on any topic not included on the agenda. If anyone in the chambers wishes to speak now during this public forum portion of the meeting, you must complete a comment sign-up form and hand it to staff. If you're on Zoom and wish to speak during the general public forum, please raise your hand on Zoom at this time. To accommodate those who wish to speak on general items during the public forum, as well as those who wish to speak on specific business items on our agenda, a total of 20 minutes will be dedicated to the public forum at the beginning of the meeting. If you would like to speak and did not have an opportunity to do so, we will provide the opportunity by reopening the public forum at the end of the regular agenda. I'd like to make everyone aware that the city does have a policy on public meeting decorum. The rules are posted here in the chambers at the entrance doors. In summary, I would ask that those participating in our meeting this evening, please be pleasant and respectful, not make derogatory statements about others, including city staff, nor be boisterous or disruptive, no calling out, clapping, or holding up signs, etc. Please note the council cannot take testimony on any planning relating matters outside of an official public hearing. Public comments need to be kept to a comments only. Please, no questions or debate. You're always welcome to contact me during regular business hours if you have questions or concerns. During the public forum, also during other public comment opportunities during the meeting, each speaker will have up to 3 minutes to speak. When it's your turn, please state your name and whether you reside within Sandpoint city limits. Madam Clerk, has anyone signed up to speak during the public forum?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Stacy Mueller.
Hi, Stacy.
Hello, good evening, Mayor Grimm and City Council, and welcome, Rick. You know, I came here about a month ago to introduce myself. And for those of you who weren't here, my name is Stacy Mueller, and I am the new property manager for the new owners of the Cedar Street Bridge. And we have been working relentlessly since getting those keys on February 15th. We're really excited to kick off our new beginnings this April 27th. We're going to have a grand opening event just so to open up the doors and let the community just join in. And so since taking over the Cedar Street Bridge, we have been able to fill 10 vacancies with Sandpoint entrepreneurs. Creations is also expanding, offering the community a Lego room and STEM homeschool learning center, which we're really excited about. The bridge currently represents about 20 businesses and, a 2 city block iconic structure. And we are committed to finding ways to create more space for food and gathering and saying yes to our guests. So we've taken all the no's off of the front. I can't, just on a side note, I can't believe taking the keys off the bathroom made a huge impact in our city. So, wow, free advertisement, I don't know. Anyways, having shared such great optimistic news with all of you, what's happening downtown, I'm also here to bring to light an alarming issue that I feel needs your attention, both the city and the business owners on the First Street. We just need to find a solution together. And as you're all aware, the property next to the Cedar Street Bridge at 330 First Street, Arlo's once stood there. It was demolished about 2 years ago. And the city has since spent a lot of money on the new sidewalk right there on First Street. And in front of 330 property, I've given you pictures, that I submitted to you. There's a lot of cracks in this brand new sidewalk. And, for cracks are, not that big of a deal, but what's happening is the land is eroding on the side. And it actually has caused us to put, what do you call those posts there so that people would not walk close to them. But most importantly, what I'm seeing is the soil underneath in that area seems to be eroding. And there's an easement between 330 and the Cedar Street Bridge that has experienced a hazardous situation itself for pedestrians. The concrete caved in due to that unstable soil underneath. And so I contacted myself, Ramey Construction, and I was able to get because I couldn't get a hold of the 330 owners. And we worked out a great deal. He came and he offered to go ahead and fix that part of the sidewalk that had collapsed, which made me really happy because I was
See, I'm
concerned.
gonna let you continue on because I'd like to hear where you're going on this.
Okay, all right. But I know that this is just a temporary solution because I see a bigger problem that's happening. If you take a look at the picture of the landscape, I actually got on the roof of the Cedar Street Bridge this morning to take that for you. We're seeing how all that soil is eroding. And I feel like what's going to happen is if we don't take a serious look at it and, we are willing to work with the city and the owner that's next door to come up with a solution so that it doesn't become a bigger problem. And I feel like it is going to be a bigger problem if we don't address it. So I'm really hopeful that the city can work with the Cedar Street Bridge. I'm not here to point fingers. I'm really here to try to find a solution so it doesn't get to be a bigger problem. I've reached out to 330. I've not gotten any response. That's not been very helpful for me. But he's also put up, those boards for the construction. I understand there's some safety issues on that, but they go so far and they impede, when you're looking out on the bridge, we don't see the beautiful Sand Creek. So anyways, I really felt like it was important for me to come and tell you this. I have gone to City Hall and I shared the same information. But I just wanted to, in just 1 month, I saw that concrete cave in. And so that's what brought me here tonight. So
Yeah.
thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Well, Stacy, thank you for the update. Sometimes it helps to have that awareness. I will certainly get in touch with our engineer, Brandon, and we'll see what we can, and our attorney to see what the situation is. And if there's anything we can do to collaborate, we'll get on it.
Okay, thank you. I
Fluffing into
appreciate it.
Sand Creek, all that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for the photos. Be careful up on the roof.
Yeah.
Judy Peterson?
Council members, I'm Judy Peterson,
Good evening, Judy.
and I am residing at 261 Leisure Lane. And I've lived in Bonner County for 55 years. And the last 19, I have lived in the Pines Addition, which is next to the Goodman development. And I'm here concerning the possible closure of Mountain View Railroad Crossing. That's, of course, been my access to Great Northern Road for 19 years. And the crossing has been there for over 100 years. And the railroad crossing on Woodland was either between 2006 and 2008, and there is when it was put in. And since there's double tracks between the two crossings, there's often a train stopped waiting for another train to come, and sometimes they're the long oil tanker trains. And after the Woodland crossing was put in, the railroad often positions that waiting train so that one of the two crossings is open so that all the traffic can get through. And we that live there appreciate that so much. at last month's meeting, looking at the map showing the other routes that you can go, including up to Mountain View, to Upland and beyond, or going to the Schweitzer Railroad crossing, it doesn't show how the elevation is up and down. And I hope that all the members of the council have driven those roads to see what they're like and to picture the routes in the middle of the winter or the middle of the night. And this is my deepest concern, as by closing Mountain View and going back to one crossing through the Goodman development, which is a curved winding road, it's a nightmare to try to get someone to the ER or for any emergency vehicle to get through. I don't know how many trains go by there now, but the original developer of the Goodman project stated 19 years ago that the number was 63. So there's a lot more than that now. Another problem with the traffic on the Goodman Road is that there is a natural spring in the hill above its curve.
Judy, I'll have to ask you respectfully to come to your conclusion at this point.
Okay, got it. The people living in the Goodman Road have concerns about all the traffic going by their homes in that kid-friendly neighborhood. My biggest concern is having to worry about emergency vehicles trying to find their way around a stopped train, because there was a partial solution to that for 18 years, and now it's going to be destroyed.
Thank you, Judy. As you might have heard at our last meeting, we have worked with BNSF to apply for these grants. We don't know whether we'll receive them. If we do receive the grants, they will have to be sufficient for us to pull off this project, which is estimated at about $20 million. We're in need of between $13 and $14 million to successfully do the project. And until we hear on the status of the grants, we don't really know what direction we're going. And as I also mentioned at our last formal council meeting, the railroad does have the right to petition the state to close the crossing without really our consent. So it's going to be an interesting couple months to see how the grants come back, and we will keep the public aware and posted on our city website and through releases so that anyone can stay aware and provide input on this. So thank you for sharing your concerns tonight.
You're welcome. I just wanted you to be aware of my thoughts on that.
Thank you, Judy.
Matthew Loam.
Good to see you all again. I'm going to speak quickly. My name is Matt. I want to talk about goose poop again. The city beach, as we know, is just infested with goose poop. It has been for decades. And the people of Sandpoint are tired of it. But they don't like the idea of euthanizing the birds. And the mayor has said he has no plans to do that. And I'm expecting the council to go behind that. So let's talk about how to solve the goose poop problem. Mayor has mentioned that he was working with Jane Fritz on perhaps doing some landscape barriers, and he considers that an obvious and effective solution. And I think that could be great, but that's not my area of expertise. What I do want to say, if we wish to evict the birds, we have to speak to them in a language that they understand. Mother Nature provides us one, fight or flight. It's our only way to communicate with them. The reason that I recommend dogs is to put a natural, predator to them so they understand they're being evicted. Here's how that could work. My suggestions: off-leash hours from 9 a.m. from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m., very early in the morning. Harass these geese, let them get chased. Next thing, create a city beach canine patrol. Choose dogs based on their strong prey drive and also their genteelness with other dogs, children, and everything like that. I recommend small terriers, rat terriers, Jack Russells, that sort of thing. I have spoken personally with Jennifer Wilburn. She runs a Shake-a-Paw Pet Market here in town. She's also works, the same building has a Heartfire real world dog training program. These are all professionals. They have told me We could assemble the dogs and the handlers tomorrow. We can get jackets, put them on the dogs, and let the people know who see the dogs, they're clearly identified, they are the canine patrol. Bring them to City Beach, let them chase the birds. Afterward, using decoys would be very effective. Now that the geese have been scared, you can start planting, pretend dogs, pretend wolves, and the geese are more afraid of them because that's being reinforced. What I just want to say is the people of Sandpoint really want their park back. That is our flagship park, and we want to do it sanely and we want to do it lovingly, but we want to do it firmly. A canine patrol is the answer to that, and that's how it would be done. They're all ready to work. We could do this incredibly cheaply. In fact, I already know those people are virtually ready to volunteer it. They want the beaches cleaned. It's a big sanitary issue. So I have these people's phone numbers marked up. I have no personal gain in this at all, except that I think it's time for some action. I gave you guys letters. You can reach me. My phone number and my email is here, and I will put you in touch with people who are more knowledgeable than I am, but very simple. Canine unit, I think, would send a huge message to these geese. The 11th hour is when they start spawning geese, which is coming soon. Let's let them know they're being evicted in a language that they speak.
Thank you, Mr. Loam. I
Thank you,
will
Mayor.
be directing, I'm sure Director Welker heard your comments, and I have a copy of your letter. Thanks for your interest
Thank you,
and
Sue.
sharing your thoughts.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Sherry Meekins.
Good
Sherry.
evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council members. My good friend Janine Shepherd is your prayer warrior each week, and she's not able to be here. So she asked me to come and pray for you guys today. Okay. So Holy Spirit, we invite you to join us as our leaders weave Sandpoint residents into a unified community. I pray, Father God, that you will bless these brave and selfless leaders as they determine how to best manage funding, preserve freedom, provide protection, and create a safe and joy-filled North Idaho. I pray that you will fill them with your goodness, your peace, your love, self-control, kindness, patience, and your strength as they navigate the path for our community in 2024. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Thanks, Sherry.
I have 2 minutes. May I say something
Sure.
else? I'm also a tenant in the Cedar Street Bridge, and my friend Stacy, she ran out of time, and we forgot to address a big tree that has fallen into the creek, and it's also on that picture. And we're not sure what to do with that tree. Are you familiar with that tree?
I'm not. I'm seeing the tree behind the yellow. I assume that's private property, but maybe not.
The last I was told, that is city property.
It very well could be.
Okay, and I'm not totally sure either, but it is a great big tree that has fallen down. And then there's a second, I mean, that tree's probably 100 years old. There's a second tree that looks like it might, that ground is coming loose there and it might fall over as well. So.
Okay, again, I'm going to be visiting with our city engineer on that whole area in the coming hours. So
Okay, well, come say hi to us.
yes, and
All right,
congratulations on the reopening.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I am not aware of anyone else who is interested in speaking during public forum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We will now proceed with the consent calendar. For the record, the total amount of the bills is $1,839,308.91, reflecting $618,263.28 for regular payables and $221,045.63 for payroll. Does council have any questions, or are there any items council wishes to remove from the consent calendar? Hearing none, yep, sorry. I will entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Dick, second by Pam. Duquette. This will be a roll call vote.
Counselor Howarth,
Approve.
Counselor Sprow, Mr. Mayor, for the record, Counselor Sprow is no longer present.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Rule,
Mr. Mayor, did you read the bills?
I did.
I missed the amount.
I'll read them again. Total $1,839,308.91.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Counselor Schreiber,
Yes.
Counselor Dick,
Yes.
Counselor Duquette.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, motion passes.
Next, moving on to item 7, old unfinished business, 7A Selkirk Fire JPA. As requested by the council during their March 27th meeting, city staff communicated with the Sagal and West Side Fire Districts to determine their interest in extending the Selkirk Fire JPA through June 30th, 2025. The districts have responded with an alternative request as outlined in the letter that was included in the meeting packet. I would note that this item is marked as an action item on the agenda for any action council may wish to take on this possible decision to extend or withdraw from the JPA. I will kick this off with a quick review from a brief history, and we can proceed with the decision on any action the council is determined to take. So as mentioned, you'll recall we had an original April termination date on our JPA agreement. We met a few times as the JPA. We did successfully extend that for 3 months till the end of June in order to have us some more time to work together on figuring this out. During that time period, council then extended an offer to extend this agreement for 1 year until next 2025, June 2025. And again, as I mentioned, that extension was returned with a 3-month addition, which would take us to the end of the fiscal year of this year, September 30th. We met on April 9th with the JPA, Councilman Schreiber, myself, and the rest of the JPA board. We discussed a variety of questions, history, concerns, feelings, and it was really realized at that point that if in fact, based on the other 2 partners' decision to move towards an enhanced fire authority or enhanced JPA, that we would have to budget independently, because the city of Sandpoint at this time is unclear of the legal basis that such an enhanced JPA could operate. We discussed at that JPA meeting on the 9th of April that meant pretty clearly Sandpoint would be budgeting for a police chief and 9 firefighters, and that the other districts would be similarly budgeting for their expenditures and revenues and their staff members as independent entities. Is basically would revert us back to how we were 3-4 years ago, before all those JPA employees became Sandpoint employees. At this point, the council has some questions and I guess some decisions and discussion on what appears to be, basically 2 courses of action. The first course of action would be to reject the additional 3-month extension offered by the other 2 districts and allow the current JPA agreement to terminate on June 30th. If you make that decision, we would have to also have a motion to notify the other 2 partners in the Joint Powers Authority that we would be withdrawing because there's a 60-day notice in that agreement of withdrawal. Your other option would be to accept and continue the existing operational framework of the JPA through the end of this fiscal year, September 30th. And the decoupling would occur at that time. But in all but name, because the budget process for the city has begun, and because of the statutory requirements to have revenues and expenditures when preparing a budget. We have to budget based on this notification from the other partners as an independent fire department. Now, it is my sincere and heartfelt hope that based on the exploration with their consultant, we can gather information between now and the end of the fiscal year to understand the legal authority to operate a enhanced fire district. And that it's my aspiration that we would have continuing discussions with JPA members over this time to, and then come back to council, of course, to understand if that is something that we can participate in and desire to participate in. Barring a clarification and articulation of the basis for such an operation and confirmation by our attorneys, we would then probably proceed as a independent fire department until such time we could get that clarification. And then in closing, I'd say whatever becomes of this, I heard loud and clear from the firefighters that training and equipment purchasing were two of the many critical elements that they appreciated of the JPA. And I don't know what mechanism it would be, but I would certainly support putting something either in the job description of the chief or some sort of alternative agreement where we would at least train together and cross discuss purchasing of equipment. And however this turns out, it's going to be likely 1, 2, or more years of process. And I sincerely, I'm looking at the firefighters here tonight, look forward to working with you to see how we can collaborate to form a better solution that works equitably for all parties involved. So with that, I open this up for council discussion and your pleasure on the matter.
Mr. Mayor?
Council President Rule.
Oh,
that
interesting. I would like to make a motion that we withdraw from the JPA and give our 60-day notice.
There's a motion to withdraw from the JPA and give our 60-day notice, assuming immediately. 60-day
Effective
notice.
today.
Is there a second to that motion for discussion?
Are there going to be speakers on this?
There will be members of the public who can comment.
Should we wait until?
Well, there was a motion made, so
Right,
I need
okay.
a second at this point. Council President Rule has used her right to make a motion. And typically a motion is followed by a second that allows for discussion of the item. If there's not a second, I'm assuming the motion would die for lack of a second. We'd proceed with any additional questions to the council, followed by members of the public or district representatives who would wish to speak. And then the council could make a secondary motion. Having said that, is there a second to the motion to withdraw and provide notification, 60-day notification made by Councilwoman Rule? Hearing none, the motion dies for lack of a second. Do council members have any additional questions?
Mr. Mayor, I have a question for our legal.
Councilman Schreiber?
So we don't know what the enhanced JPA is going to look like, and there's a lot of questions, many of which were brought up in the mayor's memo that was attached to this agenda item. But whatever it is, it'll very likely look fundamentally different than the contract that we're in right now. Is that safe to say?
I mean, that's an assumption, but yes, I mean, I think that's I think based on what we've seen, the fact that they want to make it look like a fire authority, yes, it's safe to make that assumption.
So what I'm getting at here is that it seems to me that the JPA in its current form will end, whether we withdraw right now or whether we stay through the end of the budget year as our partners have suggested. Do you think that that's fair to say?
So quite frankly, the withdrawal provisions of the JPA in its current form are a little bit murky. It's kind of our position that the cleanest way to work that out to ending the JPA in its current form is to make a decision tonight. That doesn't end the JPA. It remains for another 60 days. That doesn't end the possibilities. And I'm not saying that we need to make a decision to withdraw from the JPA. I want to clarify that. It might have sounded that way. But in its current form, somehow it needs to be ended. And it's a little bit murky on how to do that based on the withdrawal provisions in the current form.
Thanks. So I guess my position on this hasn't really changed. I think we should give it a chance to succeed. And I think that if we accept the invitation to extend through the end of the budget year, that makes things much simpler in a lot of ways. We aren't changing our budget in the middle. And we can start fresh on a new budget year. As the mayor's memo suggested, we did discuss this pretty extensively at the JPA meeting the other day. And it seems to me that whether we leave the JPA and become a standalone fire department, our budget's going to look pretty similar than if we were only budgeting for our portion of a JPA that's managed by some entity else. The firefighters from the other districts are not going to be as part of our budget anymore. And if we build our budget that way, they cannot be. So it makes sense to me, and I'd like to hear the rest of the council's thoughts on this, to accept that extension. And we could even give our notice right now that we do not intend to renew past September 30th, because as I said, I think any new evolution of this document is going to look so fundamentally different that it would be a different JPA anyway.
Thank you, Councilman Schreiber. I don't want to dominate this conversation, so I'll open it up to further council discussion or response. I do have some comments to your statements, but.
Sure. Mr. Mayor, I would tend to concur here with Councilor Schreiber. I guess a couple of questions. If we were to accept the JPA through September 30th, then we'd still need to give a 60-day notice if we don't do it this evening, which would put us right around July 1st or 2nd?
So yes, if we simply extend the JPA, which is kind of all that's been discussed with the other districts, then the JPA in its current form will simply remain. If council directed staff to renegotiate with the districts and see if they were willing to amend those provisions, the only concern that could be done, and we could revise the 60-day requirement. But the only thing is that we don't really have time for that today, because we'd have to go to the districts, then come back to council and see if council agreed with whatever revisions were made.
Sure. And then hypothetically speaking, then if we'd have to give our 60-day notice July 1st or 2nd, then Deputy Chief Armstrong, Westside and Sagal and whoever else is involved would have to come to the table with some form of an enhanced JPA sometime in June of 2024 with something to take a look at so that we could move forward after September 30th.
From a practical standpoint, yes, because we're going to be having the same conversation at the end of June.
Okay. I think the time frame is short, but I too have not changed since the last meeting. I wish we had a little more time, and I understand the concerns that we're dealing with right now on trying to extend this out, but I would also be willing to accept the terms through the 30th and hope that we can get the crew to come back with some form of an enhanced JPA, move forward, and hopefully still stay committed to Sandpoint, Westside, and Sagal.
The only thing I would ask you to keep in mind is within that time frame, you do have an obligation for collective bargaining with your firefighters. And so you would have some ambiguity in that process of what actually could be available to them beyond September bargaining purposes.
Okay. Thank you.
That's a good point, Fonda. And I guess I just point out a couple things. One, part of me is very receptive to that because 60-day notice today means tomorrow morning, we're going to be getting to work unpacking this. And that's tight. We can do it. I did talk with staff and we do have the ability to put the wheels in motion. The big thing though is even with the 3-month extension, even if they come back with a legally supported enhanced JPA that council wants to participate in, the budget process is such that we are moving forward at this point with a budget as an independent fire department, achieved with 9 firefighters. And Sarah can speak more to those dates and the timing and the publication requirements of the budget. This is sort of what we talked about on April 9th, is that we're starting the budget, and if there's not revenue from them, we can't build in fake revenue to balance our budget. So that's the only concern, or something I want you to be very clear on, that even with a 3-month extension to the end of the fiscal year, we will be budgeting as a Sandpoint Fire Department. Now, if the enhanced JPA comes back as favorable and legal, and you all want to participate in it, we would probably have to have some discussions about how does that work with our contribution to that, and we would have the budget authority for our portion of that, but it would still require a lot of wheels to be spun. So I just wanted to bring that forward. Councilwoman Duquette, did you have some comments?
Yeah, I think it's worth spinning the wheels for. I also agree with Councilor Schreiber and Councilor Dick that I would like to continue it until September. I don't like that July 1st, but I guess that doesn't give a lot of time to come up with something that we can all work with. But that's what they asked for. So if we say okay to that, my future vote would be, of course, to create 1 new fire district with the voters involved.
I like
I
that
know
too.
that's not what we're talking about right yet, but if we continue to keep together, that would be something I would like to see us work for. As part of the budget, I saw something, and I can't find it right now, of course, under ClearGov, that the budget is short-term and that it can change on circumstances that are unforeseen events, so that it isn't locked in. If we budget for just us and then something wonderful happens with the enhanced JPA or whatever they organize and it works for everybody, legal and council, that we could change the budget.
I'll let Sarah speak to that in just a second. I believe you're correct. The budget can be reopened. In a perfect world, we'll all have kumbaya and appreciate and adopt a budget. Sometimes some people have different opinions on what should be funded. So it's my understanding if you reopen the budget,
Okay.
for example, a pollinator park, if that was something that
Oh, what a
Councilman
great
Dick didn't
idea.
like, he might not be willing to, adjust the budget unless the pollinator park's out. So I think the process of reopening the budget, although the intent would be for one thing, I do believe it opens the budget up in all categories, but.
And that's not ideal, but I'm just saying that seems the focus you're putting.
Yeah, I mean,
And I'm just saying that that would not stop me from wanting to continue with the JPA until September as they asked.
Mr. Mayor.
Wishing, since we wanted a year to begin with.
Yep.
May I ask a question real quick before Sarah comes up? Would it be helpful, Councilperson Schreiber had alluded to what we're going to be looking at with the enhanced JPA is going to be fundamentally different than what we have right now. And to help with the budget, would it help if we accepted the September 30th date, but also tonight put in our intention to withdraw from the JPA on September 30th so that budget could be set? And maybe that is a question. I see Sarah nodding her head, or legal.
So I think that can be done, but what you would do tonight is you would provide that you intend to provide notice on roughly July 1st or whatever the 60 days prior to September 30th is, and that could be done tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Spiro.
Yes, very sorry, everybody. This where I'm at now was scheduled in advance, and there's no way to cancel it Was not expecting to have this meeting.
No problem.
So I'm doing the best I can. I have a short window. I did miss the beginning. I wasn't sure if there was a motion made or anything.
There was a motion made to withdraw by Council President Rule, giving notice tomorrow, withdraw at the end of June. Didn't receive a second, and now we're kicking around the idea of maybe extending through the end of the fiscal year and potential budget impacts and how we juggle all of that with a potential new enhanced JPA framework coming forward
Okay.
after the budget process starts.
A couple questions, I guess, real quick. This is a point of order. Maybe Melissa can help us here. If they're according to Robert's Rules of Order, don't we have to have a second? So
Yes.
we can have discussion. Like,
Go ahead.
and then we vote. I mean, we have discussion, then we vote. But if nobody seconds, I mean, doesn't there need to be a second just for sake of discussion?
Councilor Sparrow, Mr. Mayor and councilors, a motion can be made. If it does not receive a second, the motion dies for a lack of second, and then the
Okay.
meeting is on.
Okay, and so if there's no second, no motion, would that mean that we just continue with the JPA? Is that correct?
Mr. Mayor, Councilor Sparrow, that was just a motion, an idea,
Okay.
basically. There are other motions that are allowed to be made.
Perfect.
after
Yeah,
that.
aware of that. Sorry, I'm just not being very clear. I apologize. I guess a thought I just had, and correct me if I'm wrong, it is definitely different not being there in person, that's for sure. I think Mr. Mayor, or was it Justin, it seemed like had a happy medium solution of attention, with the intention to withdraw, but also kind of gives us time to see what they're cooking up. And that gives us some leeway, and I think it helps both parties. Maybe I'm missing something there. And I think I heard Zach, you say that that is possible.
I believe that's correct, Councilman Spiro.
Because I think some of us are uncomfortable with how quick this was. Like I said, I wasn't expecting this. That's why I planned, you know, where I'm at now. It just seemed like it was pretty quick. It was unexpected and just like a lot to think about in a short period of time with the implications. So it seems like it seems like there's some of us who are uncomfortable to some degree, and maybe that was a happy medium solution. Am I hearing that correctly, or am I off?
You're hearing that accurately. I think I know I have comments on that path that I'd like the council to consider and discuss. If you'd like to hear those, this is a good time for you to hear those.
Yeah, it is. I can't promise you how long I can be on, but I really would appreciate that if that's okay with council, of course.
Yeah, so I do, there's part of me that likes that extension to the end of the fiscal year, just primarily because of the pressure to, decouple and separate and all that. However, there are two complicating factors. The first, as was mentioned, was the collective bargaining agreement with the union employees, being coupled together, that gets a little more fuzzy. I'm sure we can handle it and work through it. It would be cleaner if we were decoupled by the time that occurs. But that will be starting shortly. And then secondarily, the enhanced JPA, one of the things that arose on April 9th is the city of Sandpoint as a potential partner in this has not had any, introduction or invitation to formalize our goals in that. They were assumptive goals, as was stated on the April 8th letter from the other two districts. We have not defined what our goals are. We have not had a chance to solicit consultants who may or may not, be available to perform this work. So my fear, and the reason I bring all that up, is we're really not sure what we're going to get. And I really hate being reactive. I found in life it's better to be, thoughtful and proactive in this stuff. And I don't want to be here in 4 months saying, join or don't join. You've got your budget, take it or leave it. This is what it's going to be. I'd much rather engage in a collaborative, thoughtful, and sincere process where our concerns and issues can be laid out.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry if I'm interrupting.
You're fine.
So and this might be more for legal, what I'm hearing is in this situation, it seems like it'd be more advantageous for us to withdraw, prepare our budget. If the JPA comes up with something that's attractive, this modified or new JPA, then that's something we can work on instead of being reactive, proactive. Like, hey, we like this, we can join and let's do this. Am I hearing that correctly from you?
Very, very precisely.
Okay. So it's not a, hey, this is an end of the JPA, but rather, we're making a quick decision. What can they cook up? Work with Representative Sauter, or whoever it might be. And if it's attractive, if it works for everybody, then we can jump back in. That's what I'm hearing.
Yes, I think, and I'm thankful for the districts for providing that opportunity very gracefully, despite what is recognized has been a difficult time. We would have that option available. But frankly, by June or July, I think obviously the state statute is going to be a next year thing if that needs to be changed. And for the analysis and legal opinions to come back and to be reviewed by our legal by June, that would be tight, but not impossible. But yes, I would see us as being an independent fire department with the opportunity in 2024, 25, with the opportunity to join if things looked well and legal.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilwoman President Rule.
Joel, are you finished or did you have more comment?
That's helpful. I'm just trying to, not being there definitely is a different vibe. I'm trying to walk through this mentally and help us all make sure that things are being understood properly. So I am done for the moment. Thank you.
Okay. So I guess I had some comments. The reason I put the motion on the table was in hopes of getting a second so we could have the same discussion no matter where the vote went on that. I would like to point out that although I've heard several times this say, this is happening very quick, this is very short notice, we've been dealing with this since December. We had some of our first discussions and votes on it in December. So this, then we had an additional workshop and then we had more council meetings and yet again, more council meetings on April 9th. And we are here again today. We don't know if any type of enhanced JPA is even legal. It appears that it more than likely by Idaho statute is not legal because you cannot relinquish your accounting of your fire department to a different entity. It appears to me that what fire and the other districts are really looking for is a separate taxing district, which again, you would have to go to the voters to make happen. I am under the understanding that the proposal for the levy, and correct me if I'm wrong, please, has been pushed back yet again. So I don't see how any of these things can happen by the end of June, nor is it worth the time frame to go to September. Again, I'd point out the labor union negotiations that complicates matters for all sides involved. I am more than happy to join in with a new fire taxing district that would be separate and voted on by the voters. So I feel strongly that the JPA, if we were able to push through Idaho statute and create some other form of government that would allow for what enhanced JPA would be, which in my opinion, again, is just a taxing fire district, that's going to be quite far down the road. So to me, this is just more time spent in the same place to come up with the same decision. So I think it's in Sandpoint's best interest and in the residents of Sandpoint's best interest, again, to withdraw from the JPA in hopes that we maybe have to re-engage with a bigger and better, more defined legal form of fire district, fire authority, whatever that may be at a later date. But between here and now and September, or here and now and 60 days from now, I don't think there's enough time for any of that to happen. So,
Thank you, Council President Rule. Councilmember, we do have the option of hearing from members of the public, or if any of the districts are here to speak, you could hear some feedback, or you can continue discussions.
I'm open to hearing from the public.
I am too.
Are there any, Madam Clerk, any members of the public who wish to comment on this item, or district representatives at this time?
Not that I'm aware of, Mr. Mayor.
If there are, please come forward. If not, we will continue our additional questions. Are there any additional questions related to the discussion that's taken place? I unlikely would vote unless there's a tie, but I would certainly show my cards and say that a lot of what Councilwoman Rule has mentioned resonates with me.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
if I might add that I am greatly in favor of continuing coordinated training, whether that's a JPA or not a JPA. And as you stated earlier, however that works within, whether that's the chief's job description, or however that can be done legally, and sort of implemented, worked out, get the bugs out of it, for lack of a better way to say that, to make sure we're not crossing our Ts, dotting our Is, making sure we're not doing anything that's illegal. I do see the value in coordinated training and coordinated equipment. So that's all I have to say on that.
I would be resolved if I didn't. Chief, do you have anything you'd like to add to the discussion at this point in time?
Not at this time, Mayor.
I don't know the legality on making a second motion similar to the first. That didn't get a second, but I defer to the clerk on that.
Mr. Mayor, councilors, because the motion died for a lack of second, there was no vote taken. My understanding is that that motion could be revived if so desired.
Thank you.
Could I make a motion then? That
You can make a motion anytime, almost
Okay.
anytime you want.
if that's going to help move this along, I would still make a motion to remain in the JPA till the end of September and see then if there is a legal professional option for us to continue in some sort of enhanced JPA or not. We were offering a year. I don't see why we can't continue to offer time.
Motion to respond back to the districts, accepting their offer of extension through the end of the fiscal year, September 30th, made by Councilwoman Duquette.
That's what I said.
Is there a second?
Mr. Mayor, may I amend the motion?
You can, I believe you can request the maker of the motion to amend it. Again, I'm
Yes,
100
please.
days in here, so.
The same motion in terms to continue through September 30th of 2024 with the intent to give our notice to leave the Joint Powers Authority on July 1st, I think, somewhere around there, to help for the budgeting.
I think
Does that
for the
make
purposes of
sense?
this motion,
Does that-
because nobody's good at napkin math, you could just
Sorry,
prior to
60
the
days prior, yeah,
expiration of
60
the-
days prior to the expiration.
An automatic initiation of a notice.
Yes.
What if there was something that came up that we were happy to continue?
You'd be entering into an entirely new agreement.
Okay.
Which we would be doing anyway if we were going to, if they brought us an enhanced JPA, we would be getting out of the Joint Powers Authority that we're currently in, and moving into the new enhanced. So regardless of what happens September 30th, it's going to go away as we know it.
Are you friendly to that amendment? It's basically your motion.
If I understand it, however, it says in there that no matter what, we will give 60-day notice. And what if there is something that happens that works for everybody? Okay, because it would still be a new
You can-
JPA.
Okay, I was gonna say,
Okay,
you don't
I'm-
have to amend your motion, so.
Mr. Mayor, may I ask a question? Because I do understand what you're saying, and I think there has been some conflation of what the JPA brings. I think when we've heard from public comment, we've heard the JPA brings the 3 fire districts together. We train together cooperatively, we're better together. With that said, Councilor Welker took an unofficial poll of how many people in the audience wanted to be an employee of the city of Sandpoint. And there seems to be, at least in my opinion, from Sagal and West Side, that they want some autonomy away from the city of Sandpoint. So what could happen potentially is that we get to the end of June and we find out that the JPA is the only mechanism by which the fire departments can collaboratively train together. However, they may not be able to get their autonomy because we can't legally make it work through an enhanced JPA, by which could we continue with the JPA or go back to them in that 60-day notice time and say we'd like to continue the Joint Powers Authority as we have it today?
No, because we will.
Mr. Mayor, oh, I'm so sorry. There's a
Just a
delay,
moment.
sorry.
No, because at that point, we would have passed our budget publications
Mm.
and we will not have the revenue to take them on as employees because they have told us they're not budgeting for expenditures and related budgets that would pair up on our budget with our expenditures for new employees. So that's why I said on April 9th, we made it quite clear that if this is your choice, we need to budget independently as a separate Sandpoint Fire Department with 1 chief and 9 firefighters.
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Councilman Espiro.
Again, hearing the motion and hearing Councilor Dick's amendment, if that does get added on, and hearing Fonda, I'm a little confused because if we even go with the motion and the amendment, either way, we're gonna. I just heard Fonda say, and correct me if I'm wrong, that we're gonna have to enter in a brand new contract anyways. So again, I feel like with that, we're just working backwards as opposed to being proactive. If they got something, we're gonna have to work out a new contract either way. So I'm trying to think this out logically.
I believe
If we're gonna
you're
have to,
correct,
go
Councilman
ahead.
Espiro. I believe you're correct.
So in one way, if we go with the motion and the amendment, and there is, listen, I'm just gonna be realistic here. Anything with government or politics, you're gonna get something cooked up in 2 months. I'm sorry, I just don't believe it. That's where I felt more comfortable with a year. I'm not saying it's impossible. I just don't see it likely, to be completely honest. That's my personal opinion with saying how government works and things. And it's a good thing things don't take or aren't quick. But I just personally don't feel super comfortable with such a short period of time. But beside that, if we're gonna have to, if something is designed or cooked up that's going to work, we're gonna have to come in with the new agreement anyway. In one way, we're not proactive, like you said, Mr. Mayor, and I appreciate those comments because that helped me process this. In one sense, if we do deny this, then we'll be more proactive. And if they do come up with something and they want Sandpoint to be a part of it, then we're able to join in at some point because we're gonna have to come up with an agreement anyway. Am I hearing that correctly? Fonda, maybe you can.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, so just hearing the motion, hearing the amendment, it seems like in one way we're working backwards, and then the other we're actually possibly working forward. We're able to protect the city of Sandpoint, which we're elected to do. And again, this is very difficult topics. We know why, but at the end of the day, we got to protect Sandpoint. And so again, hearing the motion, hearing the amendment, sounds like one, we are in control of Sandpoint and our destiny, and the other, it seems like we'll be working, not want to say backwards, but we won't be proactive. So that's what I'm hearing, but I just want to throw that out there before we move forward.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Espiro. Councilman Schreiber.
Yeah, just to respond to that, I think that the difference for me, Joel, is that if we extend the contract through the end of the budget year, we have that time to figure out what a standalone Sandpoint Fire Department's gonna look like. Whereas if we give our 60 days notice right now, we're gonna be scrambling to put all that stuff together. So I think that the proactive solution is to give ourselves the extra time. And if an enhanced JPA doesn't materialize, then we're more prepared when we become a standalone fire department.
Just to
Mr. Mayor?
correct that.
Mr. Mayor, go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
We are prepared and we know exactly what would transpire if we're standalone, if you gave a 60-day notice today.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Real
Councilwoman-
quick, I just want to, if I can, Council President, I just want to say I appreciate those comments. Schreiber, appreciate that.
Thank you, Jill. I would just like to point out that I've been here through the whole long process and Sandpoint functioned as an independent fire department. We're not that far outside of that. Many of the firefighters that are still with us functioned in that situation. And I feel like if the cleaner our slate is, and that if the wish is for everybody to come back together as a stronger entity, then I think separating and allowing everybody the opportunity and the amount of time that they need instead of trying to rush this in 60 days or rush this in by September, and coming back with a stronger argument, that to me, it seems to, especially with union negotiations, the stress on HR department, the accounting issues, again, that it seems to be lingering and lingering. And again, my opinion is you cut the cord. That doesn't mean we all go our separate ways necessarily, because I'm sure there will continue to be many discussions because there are many benefits to be seen, but all the legal issues can be worked out, whether or not it's even an option. And then we go forward from there stronger in each single entity or coming up with the voters in a new taxing district or some other stronger document. So again, it's been going on for quite some time. We have studies that have been done that say that Sandpoint, for the most part, benefits the least from the JPA. So again, protecting the voters and the taxpayers of Sandpoint is #1 priority. And my analogy as I think about this, just because I'm willing to help my neighbor mow his yard and he pays me for it, it takes away from the time that I get to take care of my own house. So I feel like sometimes that's how the JPA acts.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Espiro?
Deb, I appreciate those comments as well. Sarah or staff, could we hear from them? Is that a possibility from the?
Sure, Sarah's here, and
If they have anything to say, I mean, they're on the back end of a lot of this, and I'd be curious to hear what they have to say.
And may I just make one comment before, just because it has to do with what Joel and Deb said? I believe that protecting Sandpoint is my job as well, and being in the group as we have been does that. I just want to get that out there.
Thank you, Councilwoman Duquette.
Thanks, Sarah.
Hi, Sarah. Do you have thoughts, comments?
Where do you want me to start? We had
Observations?
lots of different.
Yeah, so right now
Extended.
there's a motion by Duquette to extend to September 30th, accept the two districts' proposal to us, their rebuttal to our 1 year. And a second that hasn't been yet, an amendment request that hasn't been seconded or accepted to automatically give a 60-day notice prior to that September 30th date of withdrawal.
Mr. Mayor, should we manage that motion? Maybe
we
that's a
probably
question
should. It
from
feels a
Melissa
little bit-
instead of, it seems a little out of order
Yeah.
to be discussing without a second of the
Yeah.
motion or whether or not the amendment to it was.
Yeah, that's a great point, Council President Roll. Thank you. To bring that horse back into the barn, I guess, and I would like to do that. Is there a willingness to amend the motion to the automatic 60-day notice prior to expiration of September 30th? That's to
Yep,
you.
to me.
Yeah. Mhm.
Again, can I hear that again? please.
It was,
You said
my
it's-
take was that it was a auto 60-day proactive notification 60 days prior to the September 30th expiration.
Which is what we'd have to do anyway.
Right.
Okay, that's fine.
You're friendly to amending your motion
Mhm.
to include that? Are we square?
We would need a second, please.
Is there a second to the amended motion?
I will second.
Moved by Councilwoman Duquette, second by Councilman Schreiber. Is there a discussion?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm sure.
You have the floor, Sarah.
Ask away. I guess now I need to know what.
Sarah, I have maybe just one leadoff question. Based on your knowledge of the collective bargaining, if we did this 60-day notice tomorrow, we would, in theory, then go into collective bargaining based on the Sandpoint budget with 9 firefighters and 1 chief. Would that potentially allow us to do things and maybe offer wages and salaries to those 9 that wouldn't be possible if we were tied together through the end of the fiscal year?
I would need to defer to legal on that, when it comes to the collective bargaining part of it. So that is, I've never dealt with that, multi-layered, we got multi-layers going on.
I think the real question from the finance perspective, if I can maybe restate it, is, are you looking at needing to budget differently if a 60-day notice was given tomorrow versus if a 60-day notice is given
Yes.
60 days before September 30th? And can you explain that?
So yes, I would think it would be. I think that would also need to be agreed upon by the collective bargaining unit, because that's their option to do that. So I think we would propose something and then they would need to agree to that. And it does depend on but yes, I would think if we gave our notice that we would want to collectively bargain with the 9 firefighters that are in Sandpoint.
Yeah, and I asked that because it's maybe my incorrect assumption that in theory, Sandpoint could offer the union R9 something that West Side and Sagal might not be able to match in terms of,
Or vice versa.
or vice versa.
Yeah, we have different budgets. We have different amount of money coming in. So yes, you're right on that.
You'll need an agreement from the union to even bargain separately as divisions. And I haven't seen an agreement from the union on that yet.
Thank you, Fonda. Any other questions for Sarah? Sorry for jumping in.
I did hear one on, go ahead.
So I'd like to clarify something because we're budgeting for 9. But as far as the union's concerned, they're all employed by one entity. So even though if we're only budgeting for 9 and then the other districts are budgeting for the other, how that seems very complex to me in negotiating with the union, how that's going to happen if each entity has a different ability financially. And that is, again, one of the reasons I'm trying to point out to the rest of the council how complicated that is in pushing this further down the road into September.
And for clarification, so the union has a right to bargain, to negotiate and bargain for all of the terms and conditions of their employment. Who they're going to be employed with in the future and how they exit, how those entities exit from this JPA potentially affects their terms and conditions of their employment. So they have a right to negotiate how they extrapolate from this collective bargaining agreement, wholly separate from negotiating their salaries and their benefits. So you can't lose sight of their statutory right to bargain their way out of this while these entities are making sort of 30,000-foot decisions that affect their terms and conditions of their day-to-day employment.
The cleanest is to have them separate. Separate in separate buckets and all that, and negotiate only with the ones you're negotiating with. When you start mixing, it's gonna get interesting.
Okay,
I don't
that
even know
was
where it's gonna go. Like, well, legal will be helping us.
Mr. Mayor.
my point.
But with that said, if we've already decided that we're going to give 60-day notice before September 30, the budgeting is only that of the 9 firefighters and the chief for Sandpoint, correct? And then whatever terms the collective, they come back to.
The union hasn't agreed to that yet.
Right, but that's if we're not going to be in the JPA, right? If we're automatically going to give our notice,
It's the
whether it's
timing.
today or if it's going to be in,
It's the timing of
June.
your required negotiations. All of your negotiations for the collective bargaining agreement under the current JPA, which you're still in until September 30th, are required to happen before the notice date that you're
May 12th, I
contemplating.
believe. We have to at least start.
if you start on May 12th.
May 12th. I believe that's the correct date. And I mean, ideally, that would be a negotiation and discussion with the union to bring them in on how this might work well for them.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Schreiber?
So if we did vote to give our 60-day notice today and the union was not amenable to extracting themselves from that, where would that leave us? That leaves us a shorter timeline to work out that.
At least if you've given your 60-day notice now, we have some opportunity to have meaningful negotiations with the union by May 12th to meet your budget cycle.
Is there a date that the union negotiation must happen by?
May 12th, I believe, is the date.
That's the
That's when they
ultimate,
extend
because
it.
they've already extended it once, and I
Yep.
wasn't sure if there was a
I
the possibility of an extension again.
96% certain it's May 12th. We have to have our first meeting by.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
First meeting.
Councilman Espiro?
am I hearing correctly, staff? That's why I wanted staff up there, and I appreciate that, and legal, that they don't seem too comfortable, or it seems like it's going to be a lot better for Sandpoint if we remove ourselves and then be proactive in joining if something better comes up. Am I hearing that correctly?
Just for clarification, Counselor, it's not a position on whether or not you withdraw. It's our obligation to make sure that you understand the legal rights of the union and their ability to bargain their terms and conditions of their employment. We don't deal with this that often here, and we don't deal with it often in the state of Idaho. Firefighters and teachers are the only ones statutorily allowed to have unions and to bargain. And so I just have to caution you that there are legal rights related to the union that are wholly separate and much more complicated than just making a decision as to whether or not to withdraw from the JPA and the timing of that.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for that very much. I mean, and that's why ultimately, just to throw that out there, I felt comfortable last meeting with the year. It gives us time to breathe and work through this. And I'm sorry if I'm going backwards here, but did I miss why such a quick decision? Why are we moving so quickly and not taking the whole year? Did I miss that?
You did not. I missed it too. The response provided by the fire district was that something to, I'm going to paraphrase, they had to initiate and plan based on their perception of how things were going, and they had engaged a consultant, and that this seemed like the cleanest date for them, the end of the fiscal year. And I apologize if I'm paraphrasing that inaccurately or incorrectly. No intent of malice. I'm just my recollection.
Mr. Mayor, so you're referring to the JPA, you're not referring to union negotiations. I
Correct.
just wanted to
JPA.
make sure that was clear to Joel, because
Oh, yeah, that was.
we were in union stuff and then you
Yes.
went back, and that could get confusing when you're not sitting here.
Joel, you were talking
Yes,
about.
thank you for that. Yes, I was. I thank you for that clarification.
Yeah, so as I guess I would just throw in, as someone who's going to have to work throughout all of this and with staff, yeah, I'll leave it to you. I see the benefits of a shorter duration, knowing where we're headed. We can then proactively start moving in that direction tomorrow morning versus, as was mentioned, carrying this forward for another 6 months and trying to figure out what's legal and how we're going to process all of it as a separate but joined entity. Any other council questions? You picked a good first meeting, Councilman Howard.
Yes.
Um, Hearing no other questions or comments from staff, we have a motion and a second to accept the September 30th extension date, including an auto 60-day notice to withdraw as stipulated in the
Mayor,
Councilman Howarth.
I do not believe we heard a second to the motion.
Yeah, we did.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, Madam Clerk.
Counselor Schreiber seconded that motion.
Thank you.
Thank you for confirming that, Councilman Howarth. So there's a motion and a second. Does everyone understand the motion and the second? Okay, this will be a roll call vote.
Counselor Dick,
Yes.
Counselor Rule,
No.
Counselor Sprow,
Again, with such short notice and the implications, I don't feel comfortable with that motion or amendment at the moment, so no.
Counselor Duquette,
Yes.
Counselor Howarth,
No.
Counselor Schreiber.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, that's a tie. You will
Uh,
need to vote to break it.
Okay, I would vote no.
Mr. Mayor, that motion fails.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilwoman Rule, President Rule.
So where does that leave us? Do we need to make another motion so
I think we either need to make a motion.
I would move to withdraw from the JPA in 60 days, starting as of today.
Second.
To clarify, Sandpoint to withdraw from the JPA,
Providing notice.
providing notice for withdrawal as stated in the JPA current contract, I guess I would call it, that states 60 days.
There's a motion to move forward with a notification to the JPA members, Sandpoint's intent to withdraw, that 60-day notice to withdraw initiated tomorrow.
Second.
Motion by Rule, second by Dick. Any discussion? Hearing none, this will be a roll call vote.
Counselor Sprow.
Yes.
Counselor Dick,
No.
Counselor Rule,
Yes.
Counselor Duquette,
No.
Counselor Howarth,
Yes.
Counselor Schreiber.
No.
Mr. Mayor, that's a tie. You will need to break the tie.
I vote yes.
Mr. Mayor, motion passes.
Motion is passed. First item under new business, item 8A.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Madam Clerk.
may we call for a 5-minute break? please?
Thank you. My bladder would like that. 7-minute recess. Returning from recess at 7:50 PM, continuing on to new business item 8A, Urban Community Forest Fund Grant. For the first item under new business, staff seeks council approval for submission of a grant application to the Urban and Community Forest Fund to the Idaho Department of Lands in the amount of $100,000. I will now yield the floor to the city's urban forester, Eric Bush.
Thank you, Mayor Grimm. Good evening, councilors. I am on, I think, my 4th week as the city's urban forester, so bear with me. If I'm not fully in the loop yet, I will be shortly, and I'm working on it. There's a lot of information, so I'm trying to get up to speed as quickly as possible. But one of the first things I've kind of confronted taking on the urban forestry duties was a grant that Idaho Department of Lands manages. And it is due next week on the 26th. So that would, hence the urgency this evening. But this grant would allow us to update our tree plotter inventory. If you've seen that on the website, I can also show it to you if you haven't seen it. It's very cool. It's very useful for both staff and city residents. It's accessible to anybody that wants to go on and take a look. Has tree information, species, size, character, etc. And it shows you exactly where they are in front of your house and everybody else's house in town. That's every tree that is in the public right of way in town, which is pretty cool. It's 7,000 to 8,000 trees approximately. I would guess we have 2 or 3 times that many in the city that are not in the public right of way, which we wouldn't capture. But it's a very critical piece of software for us. And it's extremely useful both for staff and residents and anybody else that's interested in trees in Sandpoint. But kind of give you some background, stepping back more into urban forestry as a whole. The urban forestry master plan was approved in November of 2022. And this grant is seeking to move forward some of the goals of that master plan. And I've just kind of selected a handful of things, but quickly, this is the Urban and Community Forestry Grant Flyer. It's actually a federal program, but it is run through a state agency, Idaho Department of Lands. And the second bullet on that, the climate and economic justice screening tool. That's quite a mouthful, but that was the item that I identified in your council agendas, or excuse me, council packets. And that is a federal government ran program. And basically Sandpoint is identified as a disadvantaged community according to the requirements of that program. I'm certainly no expert in that, but I could try and give you a little bit more background if you want more. But I encourage you to go on the website and play with it. It's pretty cool. Play with it in some other cities you've been familiar with, and you can kind of see how Sandpoint might relate or be different in the various categories that they align. But this is a unique grant. We don't apply for too many grants that are that don't require any match. So there is no cost to city budget in any way to apply for this grant, which is pretty exciting. All we would do is get money back if we're awarded. So it's very promising in that way, but there's 590,000 in total funds available. We can request up to 100,000 out of this grant, and we would be requesting 100,000 upon approval. So going back to the urban forestry master plan, I pulled out a couple of a handful of objectives and kind of long-term strategies and goals out of the plan, and they're in perfect alignment with what we would intend to use this funding for if we're awarded. So quickly, update and maintain tree inventory. I've already mentioned that. Review and update operating plans. That is kind of generally how we maintain our trees as a system. So you could think about it as like our water or wastewater systems. It's very similar. Obviously, the maintenance activities are different, but trees require maintenance just like your vehicle does or anything else you might own. Additionally, analysis and mitigation of tree hazards and risk trees. These are trees that have damage that could potentially fall, break a limb, etc., cause property or personal damage. Those are safety concerns, obviously. We want to be able to identify those quickly and take care of them quickly. So we're not causing, personal or property damage to our own property or to private landowners. Additionally, more trees and more tree maintenance. We've got a lot of trees in town, as I'm sure you see if you go outside. They have not been maintained very much over the last 50 to 100 years. And it's just kind of the nature of, a lack of maintenance. We're coming up on a point where we need to do a lot. And hopefully upon approval to apply, and if we're awarded this grant, we'll be able to kind of start that process and start to get things back in shape. Additionally, and these bullets are more or less the same as the previous bullets, but they came out of a different section of the Urban Forestry Master Plan, which is why I repeated them in here. You'll see that the kind of goals are pretty much the same as the goals in the previous section. And finally, here's another list of bullets. And this is from another section of the Urban Forestry Master Plan. And I've repeated it again because the goals are almost the same, but they're coming out of a different section. So the point is that updating our tree plotter, tree inventory, and planting new trees, removing trees that are diseased or dying or dead, and maintenance of those trees, pruning, etc. They're all very critical items for maintaining our urban tree canopy. And we want to use this funding for all of those items. Updating our tree inventory is probably the most costly single chunk out of this potential $100,000. I received an updated quote from Planet Geo. That's who manages the tree plotter inventory. To update our inventory, and that was approximately $45,000. And there was a couple optional tasks that we could choose to accept that would move it to about $50,000. So it could be 45 or 50% of the total potential 100,000. But we would be able to use the remainder for maintenance or new plantings or removal. And I would prefer to draft the scope of that grant to give us flexibility. As I kind of get my feet under me in this program, I might change my course of, we should do a little more maintenance or a little more planting or something different entirely as I get a little bit more familiar. But I did want to kind of point out one of the critical excerpts that is in the Urban Forestry Master Plan. It's the last bullet there in quotations. And it kind of tracks with how we are running, our water, wastewater, and Mayor Grimm's goals as under his term as mayor is to maintain what we have more than expanding and adding additional. And I am in full support of adding more trees anywhere and everywhere we can. But I hesitate to add too many right now when we're not maintaining the ones we currently have. I'd prefer to get what we currently have to a place where it should be and then initiate planting additional trees. That doesn't mean we can't plant trees where they're needed, and I certainly would. But mass quantities of trees right now would not probably be the smart decision because we just have so many other needs in our canopy. With that being said, here is a quick little screen capture of what our tree plotter inventory looks like. If you haven't been on this webpage, go on it. If you Google IDL tree plotter, it'll come right up as the first link. And there's a lot of other cities in Idaho that also have this. So play around with some other ones you're familiar with. It's very cool. Every little circle on here is a different tree, and they're in this map, they're color coded. So all the different colors are different species. And you can see a bit of the list on the right-hand side of the screen there, and that shows you some of our species. That list scrolls for a very long time. We've got a real unique diversity of trees in town. Some of them are no longer desirable street trees or public right-of-way trees, but they're not trees that we would necessarily remove. They're just ones we wouldn't plant again if those ones, met the end of their lifespan. So with that being said, my request is to, one, apply for this grant, and two, utilize that money for updating our tree inventory, maintenance, planting new trees, in a limited quantity right now, and removal of trees that need to be removed. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Eric. Appreciate the presentation and the information. I have one question and then I'll kick it to the council for questions. Being on a state commission that doles out funding, grant funding, have you been in touch with IDL regarding what would potentially make our application so exceptional that we would be worthy of 20% of the total statewide available dollars? And I'm asking that because does it make strategically more sense sometimes on these types of committees, you like to spread things around? I mean, there's going to be Boise and Idaho Falls and Driggs and Twin Falls and Pocatello and Coeur d'Alene,
Sure.
Does it make sense to maybe ask for a little less so they can do more throughout the state?
Perhaps it might. We could reduce that number to say 80,000 or 60,000. And I have spoke with Matt Perkins. He's the community forester with Idaho Department of Lands. He's our local rep for these sorts of things. And he didn't show his cards, obviously, but he did tell me that he was very excited that Sandpoint was potentially applying for this grant. I don't know that that necessarily means that we would or would not, be given a full award or any award. But he was thrilled to hear that we were considering that. And I talked to him earlier today and let him know that I was presenting to you all this evening. And he's probably watching. He was very curious to see how the evening went.
Good. Excellent. No, I can understand that excitement because I know on the Economic Advisory Council, I'm often excited when I see submissions from the region I represent. So, Council, any questions for staff on this?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Council President Rule.
So Eric, I would like to ask you about, I noticed your list from the Urban Forestry Master Plan about the different goals and the different ways you would use the money. My question would be is, how well does our urban forest mastery plan actually line up with our code and how we manage those trees? And my feeling is that we need to make some code changes. That's my understanding anyway. Correct me if I'm wrong. And why would we not spend some money doing that? Because that really is the teeth to taking care of our trees.
And Councilor Rule, Council President Rule, it will, I can certainly include that in the grant application if that's council's desire. I would caution that I have not verified that we would be able to use those funds for that specific thing. But I would be happy to verify, and if so, and that's council's desire, I could certainly include that as a scope use in this grant application.
Okay.
I'll also say that as I am getting myself up to speed here, one of my tasks will be updating those codes.
Okay, so maybe the
there-
grant's not appropriate because it's something you're gonna work through as you become deeper ingrained in your new position.
I think both things are potentially true.
And I would add, we'll be adopting the comp plan hopefully shortly, which would be further support for those code changes.
You're stealing my steam over there now. I didn't get to that.
And Councilor Roll, I will, I'd be happy to include that if you would like. Of course, assuming it is an appropriate use of those funds that I would like to check before. I would say that I think a majority of that I can handle myself, though there might be some things where I would need some additional professional opinion. I think the cost would be relatively minimal, but to make sure we're getting it right, which is extremely important in this situation, I might want to have an expert other than myself review that.
Right, okay, as long as that's on your radar, if it's not appropriate to put in the grant, I don't have a problem with that, but can you see my concern? If we're going for the grant and we're having all these goals, we actually need to have the substance to then follow through and back that up in those circumstances. And then the other piece of that would be the I don't know if you have the whole thing where it's on page 26 and 27 where there's that nice chart and it kind of has Sandpoint on there.
Are you referencing the master plan?
Yes. So this lovely chart points out a lot of the things as far as our tree ordinances, and Sandpoint is pretty lacking across most of those things. And then just to concur with the mayor on that whole comp plan, I know there was a lot of discussion in the preservation and heritage trees piece, and we do not have a check mark in that box. And so I'm just wondering how this particular page fits into how we're applying for the grants and if some of that money could be applied to making us have much better ordinance here. And I guess this is just a good visual for council and for me to.
Certainly.
So that would be my requests, but as far as applying for the grant, amazing.
Great.
So no other comments?
And Counselor, I will verify if whether or not we can include code changes or code updates from perhaps a consultant as needed in the grant. If we can, I'll include it. If we can't, I'll let you know and we'll discuss it further.
Thank you.
Other council discussion, questions?
Please.
Councilwoman Duquette.
Eric, I would disagree. I would think 100,000 wasn't enough for trees, but that's where I would go. This is where I got the homage for that tree that's going down at Pine and Fit on that IDL site. Can you briefly tell me how they get that? How do they do that? Is that?
The inventory?
Yeah.
It's done by person.
Really?
Experts walk around, people that, know trees, walk around and.
One at a time, that's amazing.
Certain level of interpersonal communication and one tree at a time.
Are you going to do that?
I would love to.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. That's what I took that tree book and went to every one of the trees in there, and that was a lot of fun. And I also believe that planting trees with the rate of us taking them down, we're not planting enough trees, just my 2 cents. Do we have an arboricultural manual that was mentioned in there?
We do.
Okay, where do you see that?
It's on the website, but I can certainly get you a copy
Awesome.
and I'll show you
Or
where it
just-
is too.
Yeah, you could just tell me how to get there. Okay, thanks. And yeah, right on. You go. Get money for trees.
Mayor.
Councilman Howarth.
Yes, Eric, just a quick question, and I'm totally in favor of applying for the grant, so don't take this question in the wrong way. But if we were to get funding, are there any strings or oversight that comes with that award that we may or may not like?
Not necessarily, as long as we're using the money for what we say we're gonna use it for. Beyond that, there's no strings that I'm aware of.
There's no extra reporting.
No, the one caveat might be, continuing to utilize an Arbor Day event. And Arbor Day is of course coming up next week, but we typically do our Arbor Day event in the summer. We do that anyways. That's part of being Tree City USA, which Sandpoint is. So that's kind of the status quo. And we all look forward to that event.
Thank you.
And there's always a minor, Councilman Howarth, administrative cost to budgeting and processing payments and whatnot and reimbursements, but other council comments or discussion? If not, I would consider, unless there's members of the public who have any questions, comments.
Tree people?
No, Mr. Mayor.
No members of the public. And just to clarify, Councilwoman Duquette, I'm fully supportive of planting more trees. They're very beneficial. I just speaking from seeing a lot of grants come in, and sometimes the agency wants to do as much good
Right.
as they
I
can.
get that.
I would entertain a motion to approve a resolution authorizing a grant application in the amount of up to 100,000 to the Urban Community Forest Fund.
And I could say.
So moved.
Beep, beep.
Moved by
Second.
Schreiber, second by Duquette. To be a roll call vote.
Counselor Schreiber,
Yes.
Counselor Rule,
Yes.
Counselor Dick,
Yes.
Counselor Howard,
Yes.
Counselor Duquette.
Yes.
And Mr. Mayor, that motion passes, and I would further note for the record that Counselor Spuro has left the meeting.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Moving along, item number 8B, this is a discussion item, no action. This will be a presentation and information provided by city staff for a discussion on a proposal to amend City Code Title 7310H and reduce the sidewalk in Luffy. I will now yield the floor to Civil Engineer Brandon Stagland.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Share my screen there. Okay. So, a little background. When somebody builds a house or does a major remodel in town, like a lot of you know, we make them build sidewalk along the entire frontage. We started a program in 2019 where we allowed people to start paying a fee in lieu of doing that sidewalk, which would then be used to build sidewalk in other places that made more sense. And that was to be used in the situation like you see here, which is where there's not sidewalk connecting on either side. I think hopefully all of us can agree that this is something we want to try to avoid. It doesn't really do a whole lot for the public, in my opinion. So the intent of that, the main intent of that in Luffy was to avoid this situation. I think it was a great program and it was a great idea. I just want to make some changes to make it work because it's not functioning the way that I think it was intended. And it's not really doing it's not stopping this. So what happens is you pay the in lieu fee and it goes into the same quarter section as where you pay it. So in other words, we don't take money from somebody in North Sandpoint and build sidewalk in South Sandpoint. What I'm proposing is three things. The first one is to reduce the in lieu fee. So it's by my calculations, it's roughly 3 times what it costs a homeowner to install sidewalk. I believe that was intended to reflect the cost of what it costs the city of Sandpoint to install sidewalk. I philosophically believe it should be what it costs the homeowner to install sidewalk, not what it cost us to install sidewalk. And it's making it so that nobody.
To clarify, it's 3 times as expensive for the owner to choose to pay the in lieu rather than just go ahead and build.
That's
a
right.
Isolated sidewalk.
So over the last construction season I got, and a couple this year already, I've gotten, you know, bids from, you know, like just a local concrete guy that'll go and do sidewalk in front of somebody's house, and it's, this is a lot more, and that's not just because of Sandpoint. It costs every government more money to do construction stuff than it does the, you know, just a private sector because of the additional rules that are involved. So it's not that that fee was calculated incorrectly, it's just that it was based on the city's cost and not the homeowner's cost. It presents a particular challenge because I can't in good conscience tell somebody, hey, I know that, you know, there's no sidewalk on either side, so you have to pay this in lieu fee, when they could build it for a third of that. It just doesn't make any sense, and they're certainly not gonna choose to do it, which is why I don't, that's why I think that we haven't collected very many fees so far, and we've had this program for almost 5 years. So that's the first part, is I wanna reduce it. I did in the staff report, I put a specific number in there. I might tweak that a little bit, but it's gonna be really close to that, when I present it as an agenda item. The second thing is that,
Mr. Mayor,
Oh, go ahead.
I just had a
Yeah.
quick question, if that's okay.
Fire away.
So is that contractor who comes to the private landowner, is that spec up to our sidewalk, or is that a lower quality sidewalk? I mean, I'm sure that's a yes answer because you wouldn't do that, but so it's just other fees and RFPs and all the other things that the city has to incur. Okay, that was all I wanted to know. Thank you.
That's right. We install the same sidewalk with our projects as we make homeowners. There's one type of sidewalk. It's 4 inches thick with 4 inches of base.
Yeah.
Okay, so the second thing is, the code specifically says that we can only use this money for capital projects, not for infill or me just having a contractor go out and do a little ramp or something, which we need. We have tons of those needs, and we've identified them through the help of some of our local citizens, which is great. We're kind of trying to figure out a way to tally a list of those, but I want to change it so that we have the option of doing it either for a capital project or for these smaller infill projects. There's a lot of situations where somebody's building a house and I want them to build sidewalk and it connects on one side, and then the house right next to them has a gap. And it's like, it would be great if we could just close that gap and just get it done right now. And this would allow us to do that very easily. So I realize that we're lowering the fee. It seems counterintuitive, but I really think that we're gonna bring in more money for this program. I can't guarantee that, but we will bring in less money per project, but I think it'll be used a lot more.
Brandon, can you just, for some of the new council members, they might not understand what a capital project is. Can you just touch on that real briefly?
Sure. So what I mean by capital project is just something city, a project that we fund either through our general fund or one of our budget items, or.
But basically, a large, coordinated, lengthy process for a project we know we're gonna do. We can say, we can only use these if we're like redoing Division Street or redoing Cedar.
Exactly.
And what you're saying is you would like the nimbleness to say, I'd like to use this money and just do one off. I need 50 feet of sidewalk here to make a connected section. And your belief is that by reducing the fee, you might get more people to pay in. And historically, to date, you haven't gotten a lot of involvement because of the cost, it's cost prohibited. And therefore, we haven't really been able to make a lot of these connections. Is that?
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's a great summary.
Mr. Mayor, if I might.
Council President Roll.
I would just like to thank you, Brandon, because I sat here on the council when we were making those decisions, and I think our intent was to be able to fill those little strange gaps. And I was very surprised because I was reading through this and I was like, what does he mean change that? What does he mean change that? And then I got to that key phrase of it's attached to capital projects. And I couldn't recall ever attaching it in such a way, because the council's intent was to fill in all those random little spaces and make us have better, more connected, larger chunks of sidewalk while we're kind of just waiting for homeowners to renovate and put in other chunks. So thank you very much for catching that. And I think that you are correct in understanding the original intent of council.
Any other council members have
Yeah,
questions?
Mr.
This will be
Mayor.
coming back as a agenda item for action in the future.
Right. So I too also love this idea. It drives me crazy to see, sidewalks nowhere. Well, I guess as I'm thinking through this though, if it costs us 3 times as much as a homeowner, then logically, we'd only be able to build a third as much sidewalk for every in lieu of fee that we take.
Yeah, that's correct. So, you can think about it like, moving forward, if we adopted this, for every house that has to build sidewalk, we would be able to build less sidewalk overall.
Right. It would take 3 houses paying an in lieu fee for the city to build one house worth of sidewalk.
So, that's true, but I think that the way to think about it is not per project, it's how much money are we taking into the program in each zone overall?
Right.
And, it just hasn't been used that often. So for example, I looked at there's 21 different zones and I looked at what we have in the budget. We have not spent a single dollar of in lieu fee in the roughly 5 years that we've had this. We have 10 years to use in lieu fees, otherwise we have to refund them. 3/4 of the zones have not taken a single dollar. So 15 out of the 21 zones have, and we all know that there are construction projects happening all over Sandpoint in every one of these zones. And most of them, there's only one that has enough really to even do a very small capital, like a block of sidewalk is roughly, and that's just a single zone. So there's just something not working, and yeah.
And I just would add, I'm not sure the right dollar amount right now. We certainly don't want to disincentivize people to build sidewalk if we know, for instance, there's a project coming next year that's going to connect. So I'm not sure what the right reduction is. Certainly 3 times is a disincentive to build this program, but I think we'll have to give some thought to what that right number of reduction is.
So I just want to point out that my third thing that I want to change, all of these work together. And the third thing is that it should not be the homeowner's decision about whether they build sidewalk or not. It should be staff's decision. I have a responsibility to make sure that when we build sidewalk, it's connected to our network. In fact, I think that we have through the public right-of-way accessibility guidelines, which is the federal guideline that talks about how we install pedestrian facilities, and it's tied to the Americans with Disabilities Act. It actually requires us to not build sidewalks that don't connect to the network. It creates problems for people that have mobility issues and particularly people that have vision issues, so that they don't just end up the sidewalks ending and they don't know where they're supposed to go without having to walk in the road.
Interesting.
And the homeowner doesn't have those incentives. They don't care. Not through their fault. They're just trying to get their project done for as cheap as they can. So it needs to be staff's decision on whether to do it. And it can't be my decision if we don't lower the fee, because I'm not going to tell somebody, sorry, you got a contractor that said that you could build the sidewalk for 10 grand, but you can't do that. I'm gonna make you pay 30 grand. I'm still not gonna do that. And that's what it is right now. And I have this conversation during construction season weekly, or sometimes more frequently than that with projects. And there's just nothing I can do about it. So.
Thank you for initiating this and giving us some thoughtful alternatives. Is there any other questions from council? If not, members of the public?
Mr. Mayor,
Council President Rule.
I would have a question for legal on that as far as who determines, would we have to, I'm assuming this will come back as an ordinance, we'd have to approve one way or the other to have legal grounds, and there's not really a precedent for that, but I guess the ADA would back up our need to change it and make sidewalks.
The answer to that is yes, you would be supported, and by reducing the fee, we're not running the risk of takings claim and or proportionality argument.
Okay, thank you.
And you're gonna rewrite.
I know that's the mayor's favorite phrase, so that's why I had to say it.
In my council packet, I included a draft version.
Right,
of
but
the
there was some issue I had with some of the language, but that's not what we're deciding on right now. You're
No,
gonna
no,
rewrite
We're
it.
just discussing.
It'll come back. It'll
Thank
come
you.
back with.
Yep.
legal
I want to
That's
present
good.
it at the next meeting though, because,
Yeah, good.
yeah, I would really like to get this solved before,
Construction season.
yeah, it's time.
Construction season.
Great.
But if you have some suggestions on the language, reach out to Brandon privately so that we're
Okay,
not
sure, I
trying
will.
to draft
Be
in
happy
the middle
to.
of a
Yeah,
lease.
yeah, that'd be great. I like talking to
Any
Brandon.
members of the public? Molly, do you wish to, or I don't have my glasses on. Who's that in the back?
Wayne.
Wayne. Oh, excellent. Are there members of the public who wish to speak in this? Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, Molly O'Reilly.
You waited all this time, Molly.
Thank you for your patience and welcome back.
Hi, Molly O'Reilly, Sandpoint resident. If I were you, I would wish that the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee was already active and was spending time looking at this. I understand that you're in a hurry. First, with the fee, I suggest that the ordinance be written in such a way that you look at the fee every year when you look at fees, so that you don't get into this problem with where it's an old fee that's either, ooh, I can't afford to build a sidewalk, I put into there. And I like sidewalks to nowhere. I'm here to vigorously defend them. I use them. I cross the street and I walk on them. I've seen other people. I have a sidewalk to nowhere. Come to 413 St. Clair and you'll see the sidewalk ends at my house. It's connected on one side, but not the other. I am the neighborhood playground for the preschoolers. People walk on my sidewalk. People enjoy my garden from the sidewalk. My sidewalk is really valuable. I would not like staff to tell me I couldn't have built it. The sidewalk, when something is built, the sidewalk defines and defends the public property. You're going to see a hell of a lot of landscaping, big, expensive boulders, trees, hummocks, things that'll cost big money to get rid of if you don't put in sidewalk when the building is new. If you're not going to require sidewalk there, I think the city should legally have something that goes with the deed that says, this is public property. The homeowner will remove any expensive landscaping at their expense when sidewalk is required. The Methodist Church on their main side, they've just put gorgeous rocks where sidewalk would go. If you don't have some place on the block where someone could go, oh yeah, that's the line of the sidewalk. Maybe I shouldn't plant my tree in the middle of it. There are places in this town where the geography really says you can't fit a sidewalk in. Those should for sure happen. Long ago, we declared some streets low priority and said sidewalks won't be required there. Those people clearly should pay. Alley crossings is a great place for the city to spend money. It's complex. There are whole blocks that used to be sidewalk to nowhere, but now they're built. Ontario is not the same width as a street, the whole distance. We've always had things that got built and parts that didn't, that were waiting for future development. Sidewalks have gone in that way. The homeowner has put in what was on their property, and then they were supposed to maintain it, which is even a worse problem. But I encourage you to not just go, oh, sidewalks don't know where, that's terrible. Come enjoy my sidewalk. Come look at how the kids use it. Do you have any questions for me? I know I'm not supposed to ask you any questions. And I wish you had a committee that could look at this and make more recommendations
We
right
are
now.
weeks away, Molly, so please encourage anyone you know who's passionate about the subject to put their name in the hat. Thank you for your continued.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
can I just point out a couple things? Thanks so much, Molly. I always appreciate your comments. We do redo this fee every year. The reason why I'm proposing this at this time is because I started in May of last year in this role, and I did not realize this problem fully and think of my proposed solution until after we were done with that part of the budget. So if we don't get it exactly right, we have another option at the end of it for the next fiscal year to change that annually. I also want to just say, I do absolutely agree with Molly that one of the good things about sidewalk is it defines where the right of way is.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Mr. Mayor,
The Councilman Schreiber.
I just want to clarify one thing. Molly said something, I thought she meant that we could potentially force someone to not build a sidewalk. Is that correct? Or is this ordinance only saying that they don't have to build a sidewalk, they can pay us instead?
The way that I have the draft written is that staff decides either way. So I can tell people, even if they say I want a sidewalk, if it doesn't
Force
connect
them to pay in lieu of.
because if it doesn't connect to anything on either side, we shouldn't be installing sidewalk if it doesn't connect to the network, at least on one side.
Or we need to look at the in lieu program, its legal basis and other reasons to understand. But what I heard Molly say is that those incremental installations sometimes do eventually connect and do provide a interim solution for some. But I get what Brandon's saying as well. So I think we just we'll look at this as it comes through and try to give it some thought when you see it at the next meeting and see what we need to do to tweak it or adjust it accordingly.
I just want to add one other thing along those lines. You might think that, well, let's just build it now, and then if it takes 10 or 20 years to connect it, it's fine. But the reality is that these sidewalks don't last forever. And what frustrates me is we'll build a sidewalk and we force the homeowner to pay for it. And then it takes 20 years to build a sidewalk that connects to it, and we still have to rip it out because it's been so long that the tree roots have lifted the panels. And then, so we just made somebody pay 10 grand or whatever to install a sidewalk that never got connected to anything, and we have to redo it anyway.
Absolutely. And I could point out several places in this neighborhood where that's the exact scenario, that if and when it ever connects, it's going to need to be redone. I'm also the proud owner of a sidewalk to nowhere, and Molly has a good point that my sidewalk does get used surprisingly often, and it is a playground for the kids, to my dog's chagrin. But I guess my preference would be sort of divorcing sidewalks from building permits altogether and doing it strategically. Totally, but
Yeah, that's
a much bigger.
Historically, the city's probably spent years of human time discussing this issue.
Yeah.
I know that started back in 2007. I'm not aware of a silver bullet. Because sometimes you get sidewalk funded through grants and the proper owners don't have to pay anything because it's part of a capital project that's grant funded.
Right.
So it's a Pandora's box.
Well, I think so is this. If we're saying, well, we have this one house on the block who doesn't have a sidewalk, so we're going to go in and pay for it out of everybody else's in lieu fees.
Right.
That's the exact same scenario, I think. It creates the exact same disincentive.
One of the most famous council meetings of my memory was this very subject.
In the essence of time, let's not get back into that.
I think we should add parking now. Just kidding, just kidding. Just kidding. It's gray. Let's just call sidewalks gray because they are.
No.
But what shade?
No action is required on this, so it sounds like we have some consensus that we'd like to see a draft bringing forward and for consideration and legal review. So with that, we'll move on to our final item this evening. What's been a very long day for some of us. 8C Urban Area Transportation Plan. For the final item on the agenda, council will consider accepting and adopting the final draft of the 2024 Urban Area Transportation Plan for the cities of Sandpoint, Kootenai, Dover, Pend Oreille, as well as Bonner County and the local Highway Technical Assistance Council. Just for background, for new council members, we were briefed on this over the last few meetings. This is effectively a funding priority list that's a collaboration between the entities that were listed, and it ranks projects that we generally come to agreement are the priorities and makes them eligible for a very specific type of state funding. With that, Mr. Brandon, before I fall over here.
Yeah, I just want to, I'm not gonna go through the whole thing. I know it's late and you've all had a chance on the dais to take a look at this. Or maybe not our new council member, but.
No, I did.
Oh, you did? Okay,
Yes.
great. I'm glad somebody forwarded it to you. Okay. So, but I think it's important for the public, if they're watching, for me to just very briefly tell people what's in this plan. First of all, it's not Sandpoint's it's not our master plan. It's not a plan for Sandpoint. It's not our capital improvements plan. This is a plan for Dover, Pend Oreille, Kootenai, Bonner County, and Sandpoint to go after one type of funding every 2 years. So we already have our capital improvement plan in place that was, adopted by council in the past. We adopt, what this plan shows is, each jurisdiction submitted 3 projects that they wanted to include in the plan. These are all the projects, so you probably can't read them on the screen. There's an intro to this report, but the beginning part goes through some background data on the city of Sandpoint. It provides a lot of demographic data, mostly from the last census. This is kind of a cool one that shows zero car population in the different census tracks. It identifies some of the key traffic generating locations in the urban area. It talks about the collaboration they did with all the jurisdictions, and then it summarizes the public workshops that they did. Well, public, I don't want to call it a public workshop because I know presentations that we did to the public. I guess I'll put it that way. There was a couple of crazy days events in a row where there's lots of people downtown, and the city, along with the consultant, helped put those together. It talks about there was a scientific way that they graded these projects and determined which ones were most applicable to the funding. So, I won't go through the other jurisdictions, but these are the 3 Sandpoint projects that were selected before I got involved in it, but they were selected directly by city staff. The first one is this Bridge Street and First intersection fix. I know that this one's, I got to be honest, I don't know if it'll ever end up being exactly like this, what's shown on this concept, but having it in this plan does not require us to do exactly what's shown on that drawing. There was a lot of discussion during these meetings that we can modify the design of these or do something totally different as long as it's kind of the same project in location. So that's the first one. The second one that we included was the Great Northern, which you've heard a lot about recently, Great Northern Road reconstruction from Baldy to Mount Woodland. And then the third one is the Division Street corridor from the first phase that Holly did last summer, which I think turned out great by the high school, but continuing that on both sides of the street all the way north to Baldy. It does provide some very minor policy recommendations. The way I understand it is we're not bound by any of these. These are all cited as recommendations. So we have some stuff in our code that might supersede these. And then let's see here. It talks about traffic impact studies, which again, we already have rules for those. So we have that process in place for when we require a traffic impact study for new development. But like I'd said at the beginning, the kind of the point of this was to provide some recommendations, mostly for these other jurisdictions on how they can improve their standards. Because you know, Kootenai and Ponderay, and they have less robust code requirements than we do. So any questions?
I would think you answered mine that this is not set in stone, this document. The things in it.
We are not obligated to construct
Obligated.
any of
That's what
the
okay.
3 projects that we included at any time, nor are we obligated to construct any projects that are in any of our capital improvement plans, in my opinion.
Okay. See, that was pretty much my question.
Yeah, and this replaced the 2026 Urban Area Transportation Plan that was adopted, I want to say 07 maybe.
Yeah, 07.
And that was a much different kind of plan. It had very specific lane widths, street alignments, definitions that we were more or less committed to. So this is a much less rigorous or detailed plan, in my opinion, that gives us that optionality for funding opportunities. So
And that's what it's to use so that you can get funding.
That's correct. It was actually required by the local highway technical assistance council, which helps distribute state funding. It was a requirement of them that all these urban areas do a plan so that they can apply for the funding.
so they don't get from, say, one area 6 different requests saying this is our highest priority, and it helps organize them.
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead, Councilman Schreiber.
I've got a few comments. I guess the first question I've got is those 3 Sandpoint projects are the only ones that we will go after that specific type of funding for, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. My preference would have been, I don't know if it's a past tense at this point because it's the final draft, but looking at the document, it doesn't appear to me that the traffic studies or the crash data justify prioritizing Great Northern. And I feel like the Baldy extension would have been a better project to go for funding for. I was glad to see the division project on there. I think that's great, and we should definitely do that. Another comment is that I was on that side of the dais last summer asking the council and staff to remove the couplet from this document, and I see that it still is in Appendix A, 3rd from last line. Is it possible to remove that?
Also in the multimodal still.
Right.
So
Multimodal, we can amend ourselves, whereas this is a document with
Okay, because
several
that was one of my
jurisdictions that,
questions too.
as the mayor pointed out, we haven't updated in 17 years, and I don't want that project to live on for another 17 years.
Thank you for pointing that out, Councilman Schreiber. I like where you're going with that.
So my understanding is that there were a lot of projects that were proposed and ranked, but they make a clear distinction between the projects that are included in the applicability for funding, I guess. So
Is this an action? This is an action. There's one other element of this, Councilman Schreiber, which is there is a consultant who put this together, and it's my understanding that the funding to prepare and put this final draft is fully utilized by the consultant. We are late to the game, us new arrivals on the dais here. What I would recommend is if there is a motion to approve, that might include language that if feasible and possible to strike that couplet project, we would endeavor to do so.
Can you remind me where you saw that?
It was Appendix A, 3rd from last line.
Right. That's what I got a question too, but he said it didn't.
Yeah, but no, it doesn't affect the ranking, but the fact
for
that
that
it's in
help, it
there,
does.
the
That
fact that
was
it's
my
in there, somebody in the future a future Jeremy Grimm could stand out there, or Kyle, and say, it's in your plan, you should be focusing on
Okay,
it.
well, then that's what I asked, if this is stuff that's set in stone that
It's-
we're obligated to do.
No, but those are blurry lines when people get in front of a microphone.
Because I would put this D009 back in too, the east-west. It was, this is my,
Oh, yeah, I love that thing.
I know, so how can we don't, if
I think we're gonna have to amend our multi-month plan. Here.
this is my baby here.
So this kind of describes what I was trying to say is that, when we originally got involved in this, I believe staff just said, we have this multimodal plan. Take a look at all the projects that we already have in our capital plan and let us know, evaluate them. So what they're saying here is that there are potential projects that they evaluated to recommend as part of this project. And that's table is really the only part that it's in, because it was one of the lists that, like, a preliminary project that they evaluated. I know even before you made that comment, that it was a direction from council that we weren't doing the couplet, what we're calling the east-west short-term or east-west long-term. And so that was specifically not chosen even, a year ago or more. I believe just striking that line from there is not gonna, it shouldn't cost the consultant that much money. I'll say that, because I have a lot of experience doing this kind of stuff on the private side, and they
I'll
got
do it
paid,
myself if I
they
have
got
to.
paid a lot of money from the state to put this plan together. So if council wants to direct us to strike that, I really appreciate you pointing that out. And I can just go and see if we can do it.
I vote for that.
I think it's a donut and a cup of coffee, right?
Roll it into a potential motion.
I did have one more comment before we move on.
Sure.
And this
Councilman,
one,
sorry.
I realize is probably not as easy to strike or amend, but I just wanted to say that I have been in communication with the Big Sky Passenger Rail Authority, and they have won funding for a new long-distance rail line that will come through Sandpoint, hopefully twice a day within the next 8 to 10 years. And I noticed that there is a section about rail in this document that if it is another 17 years before we revisit this document, it would be great if it made plans for passenger rail to be a reality here.
No, I would concur. I think this is one relatively minor funding pool in that. I know how they all weave together and I see where you're going, but I think for the practicality of adding that in, and the potential funding, these may be $1 million. Is that where they top out-ish?
I believe it's 3 million every 2 years.
Well, put it in your back pocket because maybe it makes your grant application a little bit more attractive that there's a train there when you go to replace City Beach or Bridge Street.
Yeah,
I feel like that would be a great suggestion for the next update of the multimodal plan, which from what I've heard, it sounds like there's some movement to amend that.
That electrification of the zero emission fleet also is in there.
It's gonna be a fun project.
Okay, now I'm done.
Well, now see, now I feel like I can go with what I wanted to say, but I'm done.
Any members of the public who wish to comment on this item? Wayne?
No, Mr. Mayor.
I would entertain a motion to approve the resolution accepting the adoption of the Sandpoint Urban Transportation Plan with the modification suggested to strike the couplet project out of Appendix A if feasible.
So moved.
There a second? Moved by Councilman Schreiber,
Second.
second by Council President Rule. Is there any discussion? I think we're done there. This will be a roll call vote.
Counselor Duquette,
Yes.
Counselor Howard,
Yes.
Counselor Schreiber,
Yes.
Counselor Dick,
No.
Counselor Rule.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, motion passes.
With no further business on the agenda, this meeting is adjourned at 8:47 PM. Thank you.
So Counselor